Yeah, if anybody wants to make comments or anything, they should. That's why I'm trying to set this up right now.
Right here, I have it.
How much did you pay for that little tripod?
It wasn't that much. It was like $30. It was for this and that together. The microphone costs a little bit more.
Well, I got Boya mics.
Oh, you have like those ones? Yeah, those work pretty good too. This one should pick up on everybody. Hello.
You could give me the info later.
Yeah. We're trying to set up a live streaming the debate party.
Clinton did.
So if anybody wants to come in, yeah, of course I'm voting. I'm always voting. Not yet though. I mean, we gotta wait until we vote. I can't believe we have to do this so early nowadays.
I have an election scorecard with each candidate's name.
Yeah, I'm supposed to help that.
Southern.
And it's
I
suggestions
believe
and notes.
that what unites us up here, the 10 of us, is much stronger than what divides us. And I think that's true of our country
You
too.
guys all have one.
Now, I may not be the loudest person up here, but I think we've already got that in the White House. Houston, we have a problem. We have a guy there that is literally running our country like a game show. He would rather lie than lead. I think we need something different. I am someone that tells the truth. I don't make promises that I can't keep.
We have scorecards here for.
What's her name?
So we can score. That is.
As well.
I forgot her name.
Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah, Amy Klobuchar.
I
Not
beat
something.
you.
Some will be great,
So she's at
but
the
if you
bottom.
see that some of them seem a little off track,
Minnesota Senator
I've got a
Amy
better way.
Klobuchar.
If you feel stuck in the middle of the extremes in our politics and you are tired of the noise and the nonsense, you've got to home with me.
I actually wrote an article in the People's Tribune. This is for the Poor People's Campaign.
I want to be the
It's
president.
linking gun violence, racism, and fascism. Is on the website. I'll put it on the link on here.
It's an honor
It's
to be
a-
on this
it's
debate
a-
stage. It is
it's a
wonderful
good
to be
story.
back in Texas, in Houston, back here.
Not really a
at
story, but
TSU.
it's a good linking. Like it talks about the history and
In El
then
Paso, Texas.
in
two
how
things
it's
became crystal
continued
clear
on
for
all the
me,
way up into
and I
these
think
days,
produced a
to
turning
modern
point
times.
For this country.
Hi, how you doing?
The first
Welcome.
is just how dangerous
We have
Donald
a
Trump
sign-in
is, the
sheet
cost
going around.
and the consequence of his presidency. A racism and violence that had long been a part of America was welcomed out into the open. and
Welcome
directed to my
everybody.
hometown
Live
of
watch
El
party
Paso,
for the
Texas,
Democratic
where 22
debate.
people were killed, dozens more grievously injured by a man carrying a weapon he should never have been able to buy in the first place, inspired to kill by our president. The second is how insufficient our politics is to meet the threat that we have right now. The bitterness, the pettiness, the smallness of the moment, the
Heyo.
incentives to attack one another and try to make differences without distinctions, mountains out of molehills.
Did you try
We
and
have to be
spell
bigger.
to
We have to
influence
see clearly.
the
We have to
elections in
speak
any way?
honestly, and we have to act decisively.
I'm not
That's what I want to do for
one
you
to
as
try and
President of the
influence the
United States.
elections
Thank you.
other than writing about what's important, history, facts, and people can decide for themselves who they want. Like I haven't even decided who I want to vote for
Just
yet.
served as a tenants rights lawyer.
That's why it's great to have conversations together.
In my community, and I was sobered by them.
I wasn't a big fan of Tulsi, honestly.
A woman named Miss Virginia Jones who challenged me. She said, "Boy, if all you see in this neighborhood is problems, that's all
Like,
there's ever going to be. But if you're stubborn and
If you're not
defiant
talking about
and can
a lot of the
put
issues
a
that we
vision
have
that
with
can unify
housing
people,
and
then we can
education
make
and stuff.
transformative change." She was a church woman that said, "Without vision, the people
Yeah, this
will
is when we
perish."
start trying to
Well,
bring
that's
down
exactly what we did.
who we're going to
We
decide.
created
So,
extraordinary
I love
unity
this
in our
because we have
community,
these
and we did things that other
these
people think
scorecards
thought
that we
was impossible.
we
That's the
created.
story
So
of America. At our
some of the
best,
things
we
that we're
unify,
scoring
we
on
find
is
common
end mass
cause and
incarceration,
common
housing
purpose.
for
The
all,
differences
immigrants'
amongst us
rights,
Democrats
voting
on the
rights,
stage are
good
not
jobs
as
for
great as the
all,
urgency
health care
us
for
to
all.
unite as
Am
a
I being too
party,
loud over here?
not just to beat Donald Trump, but to unite America in common cause and common purpose.
So right now
That's
we're-
why I'm running for
Cory
president,
Booker is
and
talking.
That's how I will lead this nation.
Okay, we're gonna do a brief, they're just doing an introduction, so
Yeah.
you're gonna hear
Andrew
a lot
Yang.
more from them.
Have y'all
but we
heard of
just
Andrew
wanted
Yang?
to welcome you guys to
The Yang
this
Gang.
debate party. I'm Kimberly King, you guys know me, I think I'm the Umoja coordinator, and I'm also with the Poor People's Campaign, and this is,
As am I, Peter Brown, retired Leany faculty and part of the Poor People's Campaign.
yeah, and so, wanna say anything about what we're doing right now?
Oh, why vote? Why not? Well, no, I mean, there have been many years where it really didn't matter, right? Where you knew that no matter what you did at the polling place, if you could get there, it wasn't gonna change anything. But a growing number of people recognize that this is not one of those years. Why? Why? Well, things are afoot. No, it's not just that we have the worst president ever. All those people up there will agree that we've got a terrible president, and all they wanna do is get rid of him, and it doesn't really matter who you put in, as long as it's one of them. And there are different approaches to replacing this president with number 45. Some of them want to compromise with business and, go to the middle and please as many people as they can, rich people, poor people, just to get him out. And other people are saying, no, wait a minute, I'm sorry, we don't have houses, we don't have food, we're losing our education, our climate's going to hell, all our water's polluted, we can't get health care. What's the compromise about? That's the other approach. As you might guess, in the Poor People's Campaign and the Teaching Committee and here at Umoja, we're on that side. We think it's time to say what we need and stand for it, and not settle for a candidate or a party that is just gonna compromise away our real needs.
Come on, have a seat.
Because every one of you knows someone who's living outside. Every one of you knows someone who can't get to class because their family's in crisis. Every one of us knows someone who's going hungry sometime in the week. And one of us knows someone who's got no health insurance and no way to get health care. All these are, everybody says these are human rights. Is a human right if somebody controls it and can buy it and sell it? So, these are the questions that are in front of us, and
Yes.
these are the questions that are on this scorecard. Turn it over to Kimberly.
Yes, and then this is,
Michelle.
Michelle Snyder,
Hi, everyone.
she's, who are you, Michelle?
I'm a journalist, a student journalist at Laney. I've been at the Laney Tower for a year and a half. This is going on my 4th semester. And I am now writing for the Open Post. And I am really passionate about democracy and, of course, the First Amendment, because that's what journalism is all about. But it's also our right, too. So part of why I do this stuff is not to tell people what they should vote for or who they should vote for, but just to inform people so that you know what's going on, because I think that that's the major problem that we've had for a long time, is that these politicians will come up and they'll try and get your attention when it's time to vote, and they'll say a lot of things and then they won't go along with their promises, and then people don't pay attention to what the politicians are doing, but guess who's paying attention to them? The lobbyists. And they're putting money in their pockets and they're getting them to side with corporations and real estate developers and all that kind of stuff. And that's a lot of the problems that we've had here in the Bay Area especially, but all throughout California, and it's going across the country. So I really appreciate Kimberly King put so much energy into these scorecards, because I think this is a really creative idea. I've been saying I would love to see a political, almost like, you know how baseball cards are. But so consider this almost like your baseball cards for politicians. Score them on the things that they're saying and the issues that they're about.
Yes.
And there's more of them right here if you don't have any of them. But this is so that you can keep track, because you might not remember who is the best. I mean, there's so many candidates. So we really gotta make sure that they are what they say they are.
So this is just to explain, and we probably should, can we turn this down?
Kick form of society where a handful of billionaires control the economic and political life of this country. And as president, I am prepared to take them on.
Welcome to the watch party, y'all. So welcome to the watch party. There's people here. Look, you see, there's like a few of them. They make comments and stuff.
Every American has healthcare as a human right, not a privilege. And yes, we will address the catastrophic crisis.
Who's a Bernie fan out there?
I
know there's some out there. It's all anybody talks about sometimes. Him and Warren.
So if you see, on here, we have different issues along the top and the name of the candidate.
Somebody just
along the
mentioned Tulsi.
side. You can kind of say what you think.
Somebody just mentioned Tulsi.
That's Elizabeth Warren.
My brothers served in military bases.
She is on the second page because there's too many candidates to fit on one page.
I got one big opportunity about a half a mile down.
Can we turn it up a little bit?
She's not on page 3.
Back when it cost
Yeah,
$8.
she's on page 3.
For a price that I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job, I got to finish my first year being a special needs teacher. And after law school, my first big job was back here in Houston. By then, I had 2 little kids, and when childcare nearly brought me down, my Aunt Bee moved in and saved us all. The paths to America's middle class have gotten a lot smaller and a lot narrower. Today, service members are preyed upon by predatory lenders. Students are crushed by debt and families cannot afford childcare. I know what's broken, I know how to fix it, and I'm gonna lead the fight to get it done.
That was a little big,
Vice
though.
President Joe Biden.
You know, when President
Said that was
Kennedy
a little
announced the
vague on what she
moonshot,
was gonna
he
do.
used the phrase that sticks with me my whole life. He said, "We're doing it because we refuse to postpone." Well, I refuse to postpone one more minute spending billions of dollars on curing cancer, Alzheimer's, and other diseases, which if we invest in them, we can find cures. I refuse to postpone giving every single child in America, no matter their zip code, pre-K all the way through high school and beyond. I refuse to postpone any longer taking on climate change and leading the world in taking on climate change. Look, this is the United States of America. There's never been a single solitary time when we've set our mind to something we're not able to do it. We're walking around with our heads down like, woe is me. We're the best equipped nation in the world to take this on. It's no longer time to postpone. We should get moving. There's enormous opportunities once we get rid of Donald Trump.
Anybody need a pen?
Candidates, thank you. Several of you said you are more united than divided, and that is certainly true. All of you agree on one big thing. The goal of defeating President Trump, driving the country in a new direction. But out on the campaign trail, you have outlined big differences over how far to go
Welcome to the watch
and how
party.
fast to go. And Vice President Biden, the differences between
You're gonna
you
look at
and the
me like
senators on
every
either
time I
side of
sit
you
there and
tonight
talk to the phone.
strike at the heart of this primary debate.
Still, you're talking.
Both Senators
Yeah.
Warren and Sanders want to replace Obamacare.
Nathan likes
Medicare
Tulsi.
for all. You want to build on Obamacare, not scrap it. They propose spending far more than you to
Peter
combat
Brown.
climate change and tackle student loan debt. And they would raise more in taxes than you to pay for their programs. Are Senators Warren and Sanders pushing too far beyond where Democrats want to go and where the country needs to go?
That'll be for the voters to decide that question. Let me tell you what I think. I think we should have a debate on health care. I think, I know that the senator says she's for Bernie. Well, I'm for Barack. I think the Obamacare worked. I think the way in which we add to it, replace everything that's been cut, add a public option, guarantee that everyone will be able to have affordable insurance. Number one.
Public.
Number two, I think we should be in a position of taking a look at what costs are. My plan for healthcare costs a lot of money. It costs $740 billion. It doesn't cost $30 trillion. $3.4 trillion a year, it turns out, is twice what the entire federal budget is. That's before it exists now, without interest on the debt. How are we going to pay for it? I want to hear tonight how that's happened. So as far as my distinguished friend,
Yeah, I don't know who he's
the
talking
senator
about.
on my left has not indicated how she pays for it. And
Oh, is it Elizabeth
the senator
Warren?
has in fact come forward and said, oh, he's going to pay for it, but
Oh,
it
you're
gets
talking
about
about both
halfway
of them.
there. There's a lot of other things that need to be done. I have a bold plan to deal with making sure we triple the money for at-risk schools that are Title I schools from 15 to $45 billion a year. But I go down the line, and each of the things we're talking about, I lay out how I can pay for it, how I can get it done, and why it's better.
Hello.
Senator Warren, let
Weird
me
too.
take that to you, particularly on what Senator
up?
Biden was saying there about healthcare. He's actually praised Bernie Sanders for being candid about his healthcare plan. That Senator says that Senator Sanders has been candid about the fact that middle-class taxes are going to go up, and most of
My
private
friend, we
insurance
are supposed
is
to
going to be
pick the
eliminated.
nominee,
Will you
not
make
CNN.
that same admission?
So let's be clear about healthcare, and let's actually start where Vice President did. We all owe a huge debt
They have many
to
voices.
President Obama, who
just don't have a very loud
fundamentally
one.
transformed healthcare in America and committed this country to healthcare for every human being. And now the question is, how best can we improve on it? And I believe the best way we can do that is we make sure that everybody gets covered by healthcare at the lowest possible cost. How do we pay for it? We pay for it. Those at the very top, the richest individuals and the biggest corporations, are going to pay more. And middle-class families are going to pay less. That's how this is going to work.
Direct question. You said middle-class families are going to pay less, but will middle-class taxes go up to pay for the program? I know you believe that the deductibles and the premiums will go down. Will middle-class taxes
Definitely
go up?
believes in
Will
taxing
private
the
insurance
wealthy,
be
which is
eliminated?
on our
What
scorecard.
families have to deal with is cost, total cost. That's what they have to deal with. And understand, families are paying for their health care today. Families pay every time an insurance company says, sorry, you can't see that specialist. Every time an insurance company says, sorry, that doctor is out of network. Sorry, we are not covering
We're not here to
that
think for you.
prescription. Families
You guys
are
can pick.
paying
I wanted
every
people to
time
debate
they don't get a
themselves on
prescription
here.
filled because
Talk
they
about
can't
what the
pay for
candidates
it.
are talking
They
about.
don't have a lump
Talk with
checked
each
out
other.
because they can't afford the copay. What we're talking about here is what's going to happen in families' pockets, what's going to happen in their budgets. And the answer is on Medicare for all. Costs are going to go up for wealthier individuals, and costs are going to go up for giant corporations. But for hard-working families across this country, costs are going to go down, and that's how it should work under Medicare for all in our health care.
Senator Sanders, you were invoked by the Vice President. Also,
Got
take
a
on
yeah.
that question about taxes.
Joe said that Medicare for all would cost over $30
Want some of my
trillion.
sandwich?
That's right, Joe. Status quo
Pretty
over
yummy.
10 years will be $50 trillion.
That's right.
Every study done shows that Medicare for all is the most cost-effective approach
Whatever
to
party you're
providing
with, it's
health care
fine
to
with
every
me.
man, woman, and child in this country. I, who wrote the damn bill, if I may say so,
Yeah, it's dinner time over here. Oh, I didn't see
intend to
one of the
eliminate
comments.
all
Hold on, let me get on my
out-of-pocket
other thing so I
expenses,
can see this.
all deductibles, all co-payments. Nobody in America will pay more than $200 a year for
So I don't mean to
prescription
miss your
drugs
comments.
because we're going to stand up to the greed and corruption and price fixing of the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay,
We need
stand up to
a
greed
healthcare system that guarantees healthcare to all people
and corruption.
as every other major country does, not a system which provides $100 billion
Oh, Hillary is
a year in
gonna be
funding
here.
for the drug companies and the insurance companies. And to tell you how absurd the system is, tonight on ABC,
see.
the healthcare industry will be
there we
advertising,
go.
telling you
Try.
how bad Medicare for all is because they want to protect their profits. That is absurd.
Vice
I could
President Biden,
respond.
you get a response, then we're going to
Hey
vote back
Nathan,
this
I'm
vote.
glad that you
Number
speak
one,
for yourself
my healthcare
and think
plan
for yourself
does
because I think that's really
significantly
important.
cut the cost. The largest out-of-pocket payment you'll pay is
I will never tell
$1,000.
people who to
You'll
vote
be able
for.
to get into
I'm not gonna argue with you
anyone
on
who
it.
can't afford it gets
all
automatically
this,
enrolled in
there's
the
so much
Medicare
debate.
top option we have, et cetera. But
you
guess
still
what? Of
don't know or you
160
know,
million people who like their
that's it.
health care now,
It's
they
for
can
us to
keep it. If they
decide
don't like it,
individually.
they
That's
can
what
leave.
democracy is
Number
about.
one. Number two,
I respect
the fact
people's
of the matter is, we're in a
opinions and what
situation
they
where if you notice,
decide.
you haven't answered the question. This is about candor, honesty, big ideas. Well, let's have a big idea. The tax of 2% that the senator's talking about, that raises about $3 billion. Guess what? That leaves you about $28 billion short. The senator said before, it's going to cost you in your pay. There will be a deductible in your paycheck. You're going to, the middle-class person, someone making 60 grand with 3 kids, they're going to end up paying $5,000 more. They're going to end up paying 4% more on their income tax. That's reality. Now, it's not a bad idea. If you like it, I don't like it.
Okay, now I want everybody to keep it to time, but you did invoke both senators. I have to give responses to them. And then Senator Warren, you go first.
So, let's be clear, I've actually never met anybody who likes their health insurance company. I've met people who like their doctors. I've met people who like their nurses. I've met people who like their pharmacists.
I haven't gotten any of
I've
that.
met people who like their physical
I had really bad
therapists.
time with
What they want is
healthcare.
access to health care. And we just need to be clear about what Medicare for All is all about. Instead of paying premiums into insurance companies and then having insurance companies build their profits by saying no to coverage, we're going to do this by saying everyone is covered by Medicare for All. Every healthcare provider is covered. And the only question here in terms of difference is where to send the bill.
Senator Sanders.
Let us be clear, Joe. In the United States of America, we are spending twice as much per capita on healthcare as the Canadians or any other major country on earth.
It's America.
Yeah, but Americans don't want to pay
We got
twice
some
as
Bernie
much
fans in
as
here.
other countries.
I knew
And
that
they
was gonna
guarantee
happen.
healthcare to all people. Under my Medicare for All proposal, when you don't pay out of pocket and you don't pay premiums, maybe you'll run into people who love their premiums.
Let's not be negative in here.
What people
Especially if you're
want
gonna just
is
say things that are
cost-effective
just
healthcare.
broad and doesn't make
Medicare for
sense. I
all
mean, like, you're
will
just meant to.
save the
I don't really
average
care for name
American
calling. It's just
substantial
no
sums
point.
of money on his or her healthcare
Senator,
bill.
Senator Klobuchar, you said in your opening statement you want to represent the people stuck in the middle of the extremes. Who represents the extreme on this stage?
I think you know that I don't agree with some of these proposals up here, George. So I'm talking
Which
about,
ones?
if I could respond to some of the proposals from my friends. First of all, Senator Sanders and I have worked valiantly to bring down the cost of pharmaceuticals. That was a Klobuchar-Sanders amendment
anti-war.
to
I am
allow
for
the
anybody
drugs to
who's
come in from
anti-war.
less expensive countries like
That's
Canada.
just me.
We have worked
Well,
to bring
a lot of
down
people.
the cost by fighting to allow 43 million seniors, that's a bill I lead, to negotiate for better prices under Medicare. I figure that's a lot of seniors and they should be allowed to get a better price. But when it comes to our health care and when it comes to our premiums, I go with the doctor's creed, which is do no harm. And while Bernie wrote the bill, I read the bill. And on page 8 of the bill, it says that we will no longer have private insurance as we know it. And that means that 149 million Americans will no longer be able to have their current insurance. That's in 4 years. I don't think that's a bold idea. I think it's a bad idea. And what I favor is something that
Who has good
Barack
insurance
Obama
that they're
wanted
happy
to do
with?
from
I
the
wanna
very
know.
beginning. And that is a public
Because I'm
option,
uninsured.
a
I can't get
nonprofit
insurance.
choice that will bring down the cost of insurance, cover
And
12
even when I
million
did
more
have
people,
insurance and
and
paid
bring
for it,
down the prices for 13
I didn't
million
get any
more
help.
people. That is a
They don't
bold
help us.
idea.
Senator Warren. Page 8 of the bill, she says,
I don't know
149
who's
people will
happy.
lose their health insurance.
I want to know.
She said page 8 of the bill, 149 people will lose their health insurance.
Current health insurance.
149 million.
Million, excuse me.
So let's be clear about this. People will have access to all of their doctors, all of their nurses, their community hospitals, their rural hospitals.
Do I like Trump?
Doctors won't have to hire people to fill out crazy forms. They won't have to spend time
Trump
on the
is not my
phone
guy
arguing.
at all. Oh, streaming is getting messed up.
Family members won't have to get into these battles. What this is about is making sure that we have the most efficient way possible to pay for health care for everyone in this country. Insurance companies last year sucked out of the system. How did they make that money? Every one of those $23 billion was made by an insurance company saying no.
Okay, I'm
to
gonna have
your
to
health
fact check you.
We have to
Majority of
judge.
84% counties nationwide.
Senator Sanders
Trump
with
didn't
that
win
damn
the
bill that
popular
he
vote.
wrote, and that Senator Warren backs, is that it doesn't trust the
And I don't know
American
where
people.
that number is coming from.
I trust you to choose what makes
But
the
he
most
is
sense for
popular.
you.
I will give you that.
Not my
If
way
you
or the
guys like
highway.
Trump,
Now,
that's your
look,
thing. You got your
I
reasons
think we
for
do
it.
have to go far beyond tinkering with the ACA. I propose Medicare
Trump
for
doesn't help
all
me.
who want it. We take a version of Medicare,
Not
make
into
it
them.
We'll figure that out for themselves. I trust the American people to make the right choice for them. Why don't you?
Senator Sanders, 45 seconds.
That's what I just said. I'm asking people here, who's happy about their insurance? And somebody's asking me
50 million
if I
of
like
those
Trump.
people
It's like,
lose their
who's
private
happy with their insurance?
every year.
Let's talk about the actual issues.
When they quit their jobs, or they go unemployed, or their employer changes their insurance policy. Medicare for
Well, I'm
all
gonna look through
is
the comments.
comprehensive
Anybody want to talk about
healthcare, covers
insurance?
all basic.
I'm not Barbecue Becky. Because you know this is a channel that I recorded Barbecue Becky. I'm not Barbecue Becky. Please don't call me her.
It allows you to go to any doctor you
Look,
want.
do I look
Many
like that
private
woman, really?
insurance company programs do not.
Okay,
So
see
if
you later,
you
Peter.
want comprehensive health care, freedom of choice regarding doctor or hospital, no more than $200 a year for prescription drugs, taking on the drug companies and the insurance companies, moving to Medicare for all is the way to go.
You have boob insurance? How do you get that? Maybe I need that. I'm glad you have some amazing insurance. I do not. And even when I did have insurance, doctors didn't do anything for me. Hello. Do you want a scorecard? You can come on, sit down.
No, not right now.
Okay.
The internet, the bathroom, why doesn't anything work?
I hope I'm not sucking up all the internet back here with my live streaming. We're in a community school, not great on anything.
We should, somebody should be.
Mm.
President of Laney too. I mean, not President of Laney, but I actually like our president.
I don't care if people appoint women, if the women
Sit here, or do you think that should?
are going to lie for him.
Well, you could press F5 to refresh.
F5?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It'll refresh you.
So I don't have that on it. Oh, there's an
I like
F5 here.
honesty,
That's it.
which means there's a lot of politicians I'm not for. I'm done eating.
I just know whenever I have contacts, it's F5. And it'll refresh.
There is a way to refresh.
Oh, I'm not gonna go all the way down this. Everything. Just about everything.
So,
Well, we can say a few things right quick.
I mean, if you guys
While
want to
we're
debate,
waiting,
talk about
Emil
issues.
Carr.
Why don't you tell me
Emil
why
Carr's
you
also
like
with
Trump
the
so
Poor
much?
People's
What has he
Campaign
done for
Teaching
you
Committee.
that is so
What do you think
good?
so far? Why are you involved and what do you think about what you're hearing?
Hello everyone, my name is Amilcar Garcia. I'm a student here at Laney College. I'm an immigrant, as you can notice by my accent. But I'm very passionate. I'm part of the Poor People's Campaign because I'm very passionate about bringing a change and bringing awareness. Because there are many things that we don't know. And now that I'm part of the Poor People's Campaign, I'm more aware and I became a citizen. I'm more aware of the power of the vote. So we should really pay attention to what's going on and see what's true and what is not. Because you know, a lot of people go out there and just put some baloney so they get your attention and your vote, and then they're out. But that problem is very old. So our job here is to discern.
Is that they're gonna have,
All right. It's okay. I'm done.
Your job is to say that, finish your sentence.
Oh, yeah, our job is to discern the best we can and make the best decision.
Yeah.
Party on.
Yeah, our next break we'll have a more.
Let's talk about unemployment for a second. Why was it never talked about when Obama was president? He was actually bringing the unemployment down. And do you also realize that it takes about 10 years for a president's legacy to actually take an effect?
Let me tell you something. Every single person who is diagnosed with cancer or any other disease
was his
can
economy.
automatically
It's
become
our
part of
economy.
this plan. They will not
Our economy
go
is doing
bankrupt
great
because of that.
for
They
a
will
while.
not go bankrupt because of that. They can join immediately.
And
we're
the stock
talking
market also is
4,
very
6,
shaky,
8,
and
10
we're
years, depending
ready
who you
for a
talk about,
recession.
before we get to
And if your
Medicare
taxes
for
got
all.
down,
Come
that's
on.
great for you,
I've been
but
there.
it's not
You've
good for
been
me
there.
because
You
mine
know
went
what
up.
it's like. People need help now.
Cost of living
Hope
is
now,
going up
and
for
do
all of us.
something now.
Congressman O'Rourke.
Yeah.
I don't know what he ruined. Why don't you tell me what he ruined exactly?
Thank you. Listen,
Probably-
I'm grateful that we all agree about the urgency of this challenge and the fact that
do work. Some of us work like 3 jobs out here. But you're very presumptuous,
gambit,
aren't you?
forcing tens of millions off
I mean,
an
a
insurance
lot
that
of
they
Trump
like,
voters
that
are.
works for them, to force them on
They like
Medicare,
to judge a
and
lot.
others who want to, as the
to
vice
hate
president
people a
does,
lot. That's why
incrementally
they love
improve
ICE.
what we have, which will still leave many, maybe millions uninsured and uncared for.
I know,
in a
Obama
state
isn't
like
even
Texas, where
president.
the
We're trying
largest
to talk about
provider
the
of
future,
mental
not the
health care
past.
services is the county jail system. We've got to do better. In my proposal, Medicare for America says
Where
everyone
are the
who's
people that
uninsured
actually
will
talk
be
about
enrolled
issues out
in
here?
Medicare. Everyone who's insufficiently insured, cannot afford it, can move over to Medicare. And those like members of unions who fought for the health care plans that work for them and their families are able to keep them. That is the best possible path forward.
Healthcare is the top issue for everyone in the country. I want to make sure everyone gets 1 minute to respond. So Secretary Castro, Andrew Yang, and then Senator Booker. You have
Trump supporters are
Thank you.
haters.
You know, I also want to
You heard it here.
recognize the work that Bernie has done on this.
Seriously, if
and
you're
of
still
course,
supporting him by now, you
we
are a
owe a debt of
hater.
gratitude to President Barack Obama. Of course, I also work for President Obama, Vice President Biden, and I know
And
that
you
the
could
problem
tell
with
by
your
the
plan
comments
is that
in
it leaves
this.
10 million people uncovered. Now, on the last debate stage in Detroit, you said that wasn't true when Senator Harris brought that up. There was a fact check of that, and they said that was true. You know, I grew up with a grandmother who had type 2 diabetes, and I watched her condition
Good
get
luck
worse
with
and
ruling
worse.
the world.
But that whole time, she had Medicare.
Unless you're
I
like
want every single
rich
American
and have a
family
family that gives
to
you everything,
have
probably
a
not gonna happen.
strong Medicare plan available.
need connections,
If they
a lot of them.
choose to hold on
It's all
to
about
strong,
favoritism.
solid private health insurance, I believe they should be able to do that. But the difference between what I support and what you support,
talking
Vice
about
President
health
Biden,
insurance.
is that you require them to opt in. And I would not require them to opt in. They would
Yes, young
automatically be
legend.
enrolled. They wouldn't have to buy
You
in.
rang?
That's a big difference because Barack Obama's vision was not to leave 10 million people uncovered. He wanted every single person in this country covered. My plan would do that. Your plan would
They
not.
do not have to buy in. They do not have to buy in.
You just
You're a
said that.
mechanical
You just
engineer,
said that
good.
2
You
minutes
probably had
ago.
schooling. You
You
probably
just
had
said 2
support
minutes
to
ago
get that
they would have to
schooling.
buy in.
If you have
You
to work
said
full
they would
time,
have
you
to
can't
buy
really go
in.
to school.
Buy in. If you-
And a lot of people out here
Are you
can't even
forgetting what you
get,
said?
they can't even afford housing.
What you said just 2 minutes ago? I mean, I can't believe that you said 2 minutes ago that they had to buy in, and now you're saying they don't have to buy. You're forgetting
Said
that.
anyone
I mean,
with a
look.
grandmother who
A lot of us work our butt off and we still don't get the
Whether they
chance for
choose to opt in or
education.
not. If you lose
You're not
your
the only
job,
one
for
working.
instance,
You're not the only one working hard.
His healthcare plan would
I know you
not
like to presume that
automatically enroll you. You would have
because you
to
probably
opt in.
watch some
My
sort of
healthcare plan
InfoWars or
would.
Fox
That's a
News
big
that
difference.
tells you
I'm
that people
fulfilling
aren't working
the
hard, but a lot of
legacy
us are.
of Barack Obama, and you're not.
I'd be surprised to hear.
Man,
This is why presidential debates are becoming unwatchable. This reminds everybody of what they cannot stand about Washington. Scoring points against
Really?
each other, poking at each other, and telling each other that you're my plan, your plan. Look, we all
Yeah, that's
have
called a
different
Democratic
visions
primary
for what's
election.
better about
That's called an election. That's an election.
yeah, but young legend, you're showing that you don't care about other people, so other people aren't going to care about you. That's what it comes down to. So,
Cannot stand. And that is
you
not
know, it's going to be whoever,
We know
you
we're on
know.
the same team. We all have a better vision for healthcare than our current president. And I believe we're talking about this the wrong way. As someone who has run a business, I know that our current healthcare system makes it harder to hire people, makes it harder to
I mean,
give
I
them
really would
benefits
hate to
as
have
full-time employees who instead pretend they're
relationship with
contractors.
somebody that
It's harder to change jobs.
is
It's certainly
so
harder to start a business.
only about
The
themselves.
pitch we have to make to the American people is we will get the healthcare weight off of your backs and then unleash the hopes and dreams of the American people.
Senator
Now,
Booker.
I am Asian, so I know a lot of doctors, and they tell me that they spend a lot of time on paperwork, avoiding being sued, and navigating the insurance bureaucracy. We have to change the incentives
think
so
Trump
instead of
cares
revenue
about you?
activity, people are focused on our health.
He cares
and
about
the
you
healthcare system.
specifically.
And the Cleveland Clinic,
Okay.
where they're paid not based
That's
upon
your
how
opinion.
many procedures they prescribe.
You don't care about
Shocker,
me.
They prescribe fewer
You
procedures.
don't care about my
and
community.
patient health stays the same or improves.
So then
That
that's
is the
what
pitch to
starts the
American
us
people.
versus
Senator
them.
Booker, close out this
Aha, we have an
discussion.
Andrew Yang. Hey, what's
There are
up,
a
Bill?
lot of people watching at
Welcome.
home right now, listening
Glad
to
to see
us
some
that are
different
afraid
opinions coming in because I want to see
because
different
they are in
opinions.
crisis. They don't have health insurance. Their health insurance doesn't go far enough. They can't afford their prescription drugs.
Good luck with ruling the
Look,
world.
I'm clear in what I believe. I believe in Medicare for all. I believe it's the best way to rationalize the system. But dear God, I know that every one of my colleagues on this stage is in favor of universal health coverage and comes at this with the best of intentions. And I'll tell you, there is an urgency right now in this nation. Everybody feels it. And as a person who has an ideal, I know we cannot
I think maybe
sacrifice
Zap and Young Legend need
progress
to
on
hook
the
up.
altar of purity. Because people in my community, they need help right now. They have high blood
Hey,
pressure
Furious Dragon,
right
good
now.
to see
They
you
have
again.
unaffordable
Hello.
insulin right now. And this must be a moment where we as Democrats can begin to show that we can not only stake and stand our ground, but find common ground, because we've got one shot to make Donald Trump a one-term president. And we cannot lose it by the way we talk about each other or
Get rid of Trump.
demonize and degrade each other. We can walk and
Although I
chew
don't
gum
think
at the
that's
same
the
time.
focus.
If I am the leader, I will work towards the ideal of health insurance, health coverage being a right for all Americans. But every single day, I'll join with other Democrats to make progress happen in our nation for the people that are struggling and suffering today.
Candidates, thank you. Lindsay Davis.
Thanks, George. Since we're here at an HBCU, I'd like to start with young black voters.
Oh, Zap.
Several
Zap,
recent
you went for the
polls
dumb liberal
indicate
thing,
their
as if you know
number
who
one
I am. I don't go by a
concern is
liberal.
racism. This
Secondly,
campus, this
you guys
state,
always
and
say the
this
same
nation
thing, and I
are
wish
still
you
raw from
had
that
some
racial
imagination
motivated
and
attack
tried a
on
little
Latinos and
harder.
that kind of stuff.
You didn't come with any facts.
Now, we know that the racial divide started long before President Trump and President Obama. But each of you on this stage has said that President Trump has made that divide worse. Congressman O'Rourke, coming to you first. Why are you the most qualified candidate
My
to
legend is
address
a lot
this
more.
divide?
You know, I've called this out in no uncertain terms on August 3rd and every
My
day
community
since
knows
then.
who I
And I
am.
was talking about it long before then as well. Racism
But I'm glad
in
that you
America
trolls
is endemic. It is
don't care so
foundational.
much that
We
you're
can mark
in
the
my-
creation of this country not
You're
at the
here for
4th
like
of
an
July,
hour
1776,
talking about what you're talking about,
but
because you
August
don't
20th,
care, but you're
1619,
here.
when the first kidnapped African
How does that
brought
work?
to this country against his will and in bondage and as a slave, built the greatness
act
and the success
like somebody
and the
who
wealth
you don't agree
that
with
neither
and you
he
don't like
nor his
that. That's
descendants
the
would ever
problem,
be able to
Zap.
fully
That's your
participate
problem.
in and enjoy.
I'm trying to
We have to
respect
be
other
able
people's
to answer
reasoning.
this
I'm just
challenge,
saying, hey,
and it
you know,
is found
hey,
in our
greetings from
education
Boston.
system, where in Texas,
What's up?
a 5-year-old child in kindergarten is
All right.
5 times as
Peace
likely
out.
to be disciplined or
Finally got rid of
suspended
one
or
troll.
expelled based on the color of their skin. In our
how you do
healthcare
it.
system, where there's a maternal mortality crisis 3 times as
No, was it because let's have the President Beto O'Rourke?
Trump is cool as a senile rich man who's been pampered. He acts like a grown child. He is not cool. I could think about like 100 cooler people than that. A cool person is probably like a rock star or something. But you're talking about a man who has to have a tie all the way down to his
We have a white
damn near his
supremacist
crotch.
in the
Like,
White House,
seriously.
and he poses a mortal
But
threat
that's your
to
opinion.
people of
If
color
you think
all
he's
across
cool,
this country.
you think he's cool. That was my opinion. I didn't need to make fun of you, right? I didn't need to call you names, or label you.
To the passion and the frustration and the sadness after what happened in his hometown of El Paso. He's done a great job with that. Look, people who look like me, and people who look like my family. White
Zap,
supremacy is a
why
growing
don't you
threat
help
to this country, and we have to
Punk
root it out.
Gaming find his dad in the milk section?
I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's the Wi-Fi signal that's not that strong because it's all metal container here.
So I'm wondering, Bill, why are you team Andrew Yang?
I'm trying to get in. Sorry.
I'm trying to look. Let me see. Let's look at Zach. Issues of GDP growth. GDP growth has been going on since many years. Way like Obama started that. So that says what? It says that we have GDP growth that is helping the top. It's not helping the people that are poor.
Hello, everybody. I'm really glad to see all the nice faces, shiny
And that was
here,
the one issue
because
you brought up.
What we're doing is what Emil Carr talked about. We're doing this part called civic involvement, which means we have to be both informed about not only the candidates, but what are the things that we need to live lives of dignity? And what plans help that? What plans harm that? And how do we have the kind of conversations in our communities to help us deepen that? So sometimes people will say, well, it's a person that's the same color as I am. Or, well, this person is the same nationality. Or maybe this person is the same gender. But do those things ensure what we need, the problems that we need to have solved are in fact addressed? I like this Wi-Fi. It's giving me all the time that I want. No. But one of the things that we think, and Emil Carr kicked it off, and he's one of the teachers now, is that we have to, one, teach ourselves, and we have to also study. We've got to combine those things. So something that we use in the Poor People's Campaign here on the campus is something called the People's Tribune. You probably have them. I want to take your eye over to the centerfolds on page 6 and 7. And there's some people who contributed to page 6 and 7. I don't know, her initials is Michelle Snyder. Okay, who is are you still our editor of our campus paper?
Yeah, I am.
Michelle wrote a piece over here. It's a longer piece if you go on the website, but it's called Linking Gun Violence, Racism, and Fascism. But there's also articles on the importance of voting, and also articles from some of our moms who are here in Oakland about having been homeless and what are the kinds of things that need to be done. But the point is breaking the silence on poverty, as well as making sure we're engaged and involved in talking about what the solution should be. So this is one level. Let's make sure we know what these jokers are saying. And the scorecard is a way to really, so if you can't remember everything that these guys said, which actually we don't hear all the stuff because a lot of it is salesman talk. But as Emil said, right now they're selling. But we need to then re-huddle. After this meeting, we need to come back together and say, okay, what is it we actually need? Free, quality public education. Well, who's about taking that from us? Or how can we have all these exploding condominiums in the city of Oakland, and then my neighbors and family and friends, the only housing they can find affordable is on the pavement? Who is failing us? Why is it like that? We have to put those questions forward, but we also get to say, what do we want to see this done? So this whole newspaper is other people talking about, one, their own stories, all parts of the country, and two, what they're doing to fight and address it. So you can write for this paper, your neighborhood association, your school club, you as an individual. This can be part of your voice, and it can allow to be shared. And Michelle's article, if you go on the website and see her longer one, it's really, really good. It's 1,100 words. But there's all these articles in here are also really, really good, and it's focused on our teach-in. When is our teach-in? Can somebody tell me what our teach-in is? Oh,
September 25th.
Oh, okay, the 25th. Am I going to
And second, I was born knowing about how this criminal justice system in America has worked and that has been informed by racial bias. And I can tell you extensively about the experiences I and my family members have personally had. But I made a decision that if I was going to have the ability to reform the system, I would try to do it from the inside. And so I took on the position that allowed me, without asking permission, to create one of the first in the nation initiatives that was a model and became a national model around people who were arrested for drugs and getting them jobs. I created one of the first in the nation requirements that a state law enforcement agency would have to wear cameras and keep them on full time. I created one of the first in the nation trainings for police officer on the issue of racial bias and the need to reform the system. Was I able to get enough done? Absolutely not. But my plan has been described by activists as being a bold and comprehensive plan that is about ending mass incarceration, about taking the profit out of the criminal justice system. I plan on shutting down for-profit prisons on day one. It will be about what we need to do.
There we go.
To hold
Something
law
new.
enforcement, including prosecutors, accountable. And finally, my plan is about
Let's
making
see.
sure that
Got
in
my
America's
scorecard out.
criminal justice system, we de-incarcerate women and children, that we end solitary confinement, and that we work on keeping families intact. And as President of the United States, knowing the system from the inside, I will have the ability to be an effective leader and get this job complete.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Senator Klobuchar, during your 8 years as a prosecutor
did
in Minnesota,
say,
there were dozens of incidents where black men were killed by police. Critics say that too often you sided with police in these cases. The ACLU's legal director of Minnesota has said that you showed no interest in racial justice. Do you wish now that you had done more?
That's not my record. We are here at a historically black college. And I think of an alum of that college, Barbara Jordan, and something that she once said. She said, what the people want is simple. They want a country as good as its promise. And that same can be said of the criminal justice system. So when I was there, the way we handled these police shootings, I actually took a stand to make sure outside investigators handled them. I took on our major police chief in Minneapolis. But in the prosecutor's office, they were handled with the grand jury.
I'm glad we're
That's how they
getting
were all
much nicer
handled
comments.
across our state. I now believe it is
More
better
civil,
for
makes
accountability
sense comments.
if the prosecutor handles them and makes those decisions herself. That aside, I am proud of the work our staff did. 400 people in our office. The cases that came to us, the African-American community that came to us, they said there was no justice for their little kids.
Yeah,
there was a
I
kid named
am.
Byron Phillips that was shot on his front porch.
Since the start of this
no one
year,
had
pretty
bothered
much,
to figure
or
out
the
who
end
did
of
it.
last
When
year.
I came into that office, we worked with the community groups, we put up billboards.
Right, 'cause we're at a debate watch party right now.
We did the same for the killer of a little girl named Taisha Edwards, who was doing her homework at her kitchen table and
Double
was shot through the
takedown.
window.
Which one, the double
What
takedown, do you
changes
mean?
did we make? Go after white-collar crimes in a big way. Diversify the office in a big way.
I like
Work
ending,
with the Innocence Project to make sure we do much
white-collar
better with
crimes
our
would be
witness
nice.
ID. And as a senator and as your president, I will make sure that we don't just do the first step back when it comes to criminal sentencing, that we move to the second step back, which means the 90% of people that are incarcerated in local and state jails, let's reduce those sentences for nonviolent offenders, and let's get them jobs and let them vote when they get out of prison.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar.
Voting rights.
Drugs has put too many Americans behind bars. Vice President Biden, you have a plan to release many nonviolent drug offenders from prison. Senator Booker says that your plan is not ambitious enough. Your response?
First of all, let me say that when I came back from law school, I had a job with a big-time law firm.
I'm actually watching
I
it
left
through the
and
screen
became a
right
public
here.
defender because my state was under siege. When Dr. King was assassinated, we were occupied by the National Guard for 10 months. I've been involved from the beginning. As a young congressman, as a young councilman, I introduced legislation to try to keep them putting a sewer plant in a poor neighborhood. I made sure that we dealt with redlining. Banks should have to lend where they operate, et cetera. The fact of the matter is that what's happened is that we're in a situation now where there are so many people who are in jail and shouldn't be in jail. The whole means by which this should change is the whole model has to change. We should be talking about rehabilitation. Nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. As when we were in the White House, we released 36,000 people from the federal prison system. Nobody should be in jail for a drug problem. They should be going directly to a rehabilitation. We build more rehabilitation centers, not prisons. I'm the guy that put in the drug courts to divert people from the criminal justice system. And so we have to change the whole way we look at this. When we put people in prison, we have to equip them when they get out. Nobody who got in prison
I can't
for
see comments that
marijuana,
way.
for example, immediately upon being released, they shouldn't be in there for that should be a misdemeanor. They should be out and their record should be expunged. Every single right should be returned. When you finish your term in prison, you should be able not only to vote, but have access to Pell Grants, have access to be able to get housing, have access to be able to move along the way. I've laid out a detailed plan along those lines.
Are you doing a scorecard?
The fact is we've learned so much more.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Senator Booker, 45 seconds to respond.
Our criminal justice system is so savagely broken. There's no difference in America
Oh, there's
between
one
blacks
right
and whites and
Latinos for using drugs or dealing drugs. But if you're African American, you're almost 4 times more likely to be arrested and incarcerated, destroying your lives. And so much of this comes down to privilege. We have a criminal justice system that Brian Stevenson says treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. And so I have challenged this whole field. We can specifically and demonstratively now show that there are 17,000 people unjustly incarcerated in America, and all of us should come forward and say, when we are president of the United States, when I am president of the United States, we will release them. And let me be specific. I joined together and led in the United States Senate the only major bipartisan bill passed under this president for criminal justice reform that has already led to thousands of people coming out of jail. If 87 members of the United States Senate says that these sentences are way too long, and we changed it, but we didn't make it retroactive, we can literally point to the people that are in jail unjustly right now. Everyone on this stage should say that we are going to give clemency to these 17,000 people. And I challenge you, don't just say big statements, back it up with details of the people in prison right now looking for one of the most sacrosanct ideals of this nation, which is liberty and freedom. We need to reform this system, and we must do it now. Every day we wait too long.
It's like they have to challenge each other
Turn to the
to
deadly
be better.
mass shootings here in this country, and of course, we are all mindful tonight of where we stand. We are here in Texas tonight, where 29 people have lost their lives in just the last month alone. El Paso, which we've discussed, in Odessa, and I know there are survivors
I wrote
from
an
El
article
Paso
on this.
right here in the hall tonight. Vice President Biden,
I
I do
will
want to
try
direct
and
this to you
post
because we
that
all remember Sandy Hook.
up in the
26 people died in
description
that school,
after this is
20 of
done.
them children. Those first graders would be in 8th grade today. At the time, there was a groundswell in this country to get something done. President Obama asked you to lead the push for gun control. You have often pointed to your ability to reach across the aisle to get things done. But 4 months after Sandy Hook, a measure to require expanded background checks died on the Senate floor. If you couldn't get it done after Sandy Hook, why should voters give you another chance?
God done before. I'm the only one up here who's ever beat the NRA. Only one ever beat the NRA nationally. I'm the guy that brought the Brady bill into focus and became law. And so that's number one. Number two, after Sandy Hook, a number of things happened. It went from a cause to a movement. Look what's happened now. Mothers, the organization, Mothers Against Violence, gun violence. We've seen what's happened again. Now we have all these young people marching on Washington, making sure that things are going to change. There has been a sea change. Those proposals I put forward for the president had over 50% of members of the NRA supporting them, and overwhelmingly the rest of the people supporting them. Now the numbers are much higher because they realize what I've been saying, and we've all been saying is correct.
Probably not
Over
completely
90% of the American people think we have to get assault weapons off the street, period. And we have to get buybacks and get them out of their basements. So the point is, things have changed, and things have changed a lot. And now what's happening is, and by the way, the way Beto handled, excuse me for saying Beto, but Congressman.
That's all right. Beto's good.
The way he handled what happened in his hometown is meaningful. To look in the eyes of those people, to see those kids, to understand those parents, you understand the heartache.
York, Pennsylvania. Well, you know where I'm at, Oakland. You know it gets crazy out here too.
You did bring up the
Although it's not as bad as it used to be, it's still crazy.
About executive orders. Senator Harris, you have said that you would take executive action on guns within your first 100 days, including banning imports of AR-15 assault weapons.
That's right.
President Obama, after Sandy Hook, more than 23 executive actions, and yet here we all are today. In recent days, former Vice President Biden has said about executive orders, some really talented people are seeking the nomination. They said, I'm going to issue an executive order. Biden saying there's no constitutional authority to issue that executive order when they say I'm going to eliminate assault weapons, saying you can't do it by executive order any more than Trump can do things
like
when
LA
he says
too.
he can do it by executive order. Does the vice president have a point there?
Some things you can, many things you can't.
Let's let the senator answer.
Well, I mean, I would just say, hey, Joe, instead of saying no, we can't, let's say yes, we can.
Oh, wow. Isn't it an Obama thing?
Yes, we can, because I'll tell you something. The way that I think about this is, I've seen more autopsy photographs than I care to tell you. I have attended more police officer funerals than I care to tell you. I have hugged more mothers of homicide victims than I care to tell you. And The idea that we would wait
77.
for this Congress, which has just done nothing to act, is just, it is overlooking the fact that
Disco
every
babies.
day in America, our babies are going to school to have drills, elementary, middle, and high school students, where they are learning about how they have to hide in a closet or crouch in a corner if there is a mass shooter roaming the hallways of their school. I was talking about this at one of my town halls, and this child, it was 8 years old probably, came up to me. It was like it was a secret between the two of us, and he tugged on my jacket and he said, I had to have one of those drills. It is traumatizing our children. El Paso and Beto, God love you for standing so courageously in the midst of that tragedy. You know, people asked me in El Paso, they said, you know, because I have a long-standing record on this issue, they said, well, do you think Trump is responsible for what happened? And I said, well, look, I mean, obviously he didn't pull the trigger, but he's certainly been tweeting out the ammunition. Right.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, do you still stand by what you said on the executive
What I
order?
said was, the question, speak to constitutional scholars. If in fact we could say, by the way, you can't own the following weapons, period. They cannot be sold anymore. Check with constitutional scholars.
Mr. Vice President, thank you.
Could I tell you what you
Congressman O'Rourke, I
could
want to
do?
give you,
100 days?
I'm going to work down the road here, but I do want to come to Congressman O'Rourke because I know this is personal to you. El Paso is your hometown. Some on this stage have suggested a voluntary buyback for guns in this country. You've gone further. You said, quote, Americans who own AR-15s and AK-47s will have to sell them to the government, all of them. You know, the critics call this confiscation. Are you proposing taking away their guns, and how would this work?
I am, if it's a weapon that was designed to kill people on a battlefield.
Hello.
If the high
No, I've heard
impact,
of
high
York
velocity
before.
round,
I've
when
heard
it
of
hits your
York.
body, shreds everything inside of your
Y'all
body
have a
because it was designed to
reputation,
do
I know.
that, so that you would bleed to death on a battlefield, not be able to get up and kill one of our soldiers. When we see that being used against children, and in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15, and that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47.
We got a response over here.
I'm listening to the people of this country. The day after I proposed doing that, I went to a gun show in Conway, Arkansas, to meet with those who are selling AR-15s and AK-47s and those who are buying those
Might be
weapons.
a little young
And
for
you
me,
might
but
be
yeah.
surprised there was some common ground there. Folks who said, I would willingly give that up, cut it to pieces. I don't need this weapon to hunt, to defend myself. It is a weapon of war. So let's do the right thing, but let's bring everyone in America into the conversation. Republicans, Democrats, gun owners, and non-gun owners alike.
Congressman, thank you. I want to bring in Senator Klobuchar on this because you've often talked about your uncle and the proud hunters back home in Minnesota. So I wanted to get your response to Congressman O'Rourke tonight. Where do you stand on mandatory gun buybacks?
I so appreciate what the congressman's been doing, and I want to remind people here that what unites us is so much bigger than what divides us. Everyone up here
I'd love
favors
to go to
an
the East
assault weapon
Coast.
ban.
I've always wanted to go.
Everyone up here
Rylan, I'm
favors
almost
magazine
42.
limitations, which, by the way, would have made a huge difference if that was in place in El Paso, in that store where all those ordinary people showed such
could try, I could
extraordinary
bring it up.
courage. And
I
certainly
hope
in
they're
Dayton,
watching
Ohio,
this.
where in 30 seconds, one
But we
man
don't have
guns
much
down
money out here either
innocent
to
people.
travel
The
and
cops
stuff.
got there in
But
1
we are
minute,
part of the
and
poor
it
people's
still wasn't
campaign.
enough to save those people.
And they travel
That's what
around.
unites us.
So
You
we
know what
could
else unites
try
us?
and get people out there.
And I'll tell you this. What unites us is that right now, on Mitch McConnell's desk are 3 bills. Universal background checks, closing the Charleston loophole, and passing my bill to make sure that domestic abusers don't get AK-47. So really get something done. And I personally think we should start with a voluntary buyback program. That's what I think, David. But I want to finish this because if you want action now, we got to send a message to Mitch
I'm
McConnell.
not
We
part
can't
of them.
wait until one of us gets in the White House. We have to pass
That's
those
why.
bills right now to get this done.
Senator
Because we
Klobuchar.
cannot spare another innocent life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Riley,
I want to turn
yes.
to Senator Booker because
Can
you
never
have said
forget it.
just
Nobody
this
will
week
ever let me forget
about
about
guns
that.
and about the candidates on this stage that the differences do matter. Those were your words. You have argued if you need a license to drive a car in this country, you should have a license to buy a gun.
I really
Gun owners
needed
would not
that.
only have to pass a background check, they would have to obtain a federal license to buy a gun. This would require, as you know, Congress to pass legislation. If Democrats can't get universal background checks, how would you get this done? And can
Made her
you
cry.
name one Republican colleague of yours in the Senate right now who would be on board with this idea?
So background checks and gun licensing, these are agreed to by overwhelmingly the majority of Americans. 83% of Americans agree with licensing. This is the issue. Look, I grew up in the suburbs. It was about 20 years ago that I came out of my home when I moved to inner city Newark, New Jersey, and witnessed the aftermath of a shooting. It's one of the reasons why shooting after
Gonna go get
shooting
some
after
water real
shooting in
quick.
neighborhoods like mine for decades,
Yeah, I
this has been
always
a
stand my
crisis for me. It's why I was the first person to come
Always.
out for gun licensing. And I'm happy that people like Beto O'Rourke are showing such courage now and coming forward and also now supporting licensing. But this is what I'm sorry about. I'm sorry that it had to take issues coming to my neighborhood or personally affecting Beto to suddenly make us demand change. This is a crisis of empathy in our nation. We are never going to solve this crisis if we have to wait for it to personally affect us or our neighborhood or our community before we demand action. You want to know how we get this done? We get this done by having a more courageous empathy where people don't wait for this hell to visit upon their communities. They stand up and understand the truth of what King said, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I will lead change on this issue because I have seen what the carnage creates in communities like mine, because we forget national shootings, these mass shootings are tragedies, but the majority of the homicide victims come from neighborhoods like mine. Nobody has ascended to the White House that will bring more personal passion on this issue. I will fight this and bring a fight to the NRA and the corporate gun lobby like they have never seen before.
Senator Booker, thank you. A quick follow-up, because Americans watching tonight know the reality of Congress in Washington. I asked, do you have a Republican colleague in the Senate who would be on board with this idea to get this done?
Can't have a watch
You know,
party without
if
food.
that was the attitude when Strom Thurmond had the longest filibuster ever on civil rights, if it was this idea that we can't get it done because of the situation in the Senate, I'm looking to lead a movement. The number one reason why governments are formed is to protect the
Keep
citizen.
focusing on Biden
Think about
and
this. We have had
Booker
more people
and
die due to gun violence in my lifetime than every single war in this country combined from the Revolutionary War till now. This is not a side issue to me. It is a central issue to me. That is the kind of fight, because the majority of homicide victims are mass shooting every single day in communities like mine. We must awaken a more courageous empathy in
What's
this
up, Rylan?
country.
Go ahead and
so we
ask your
stand
question now.
together and fight together and overwhelm those Republicans who are not even representing their constituency. Because the majority of
Chocolate
Americans,
is
the
yummy.
majority of gun owners agree with me, not the corporate gun lobby. It is time for a movement
But I
on
don't
this
eat
issue,
chocolate that
and I
much.
will lead it.
Senator Booker, thank you. Senator Warren, I
Hello,
want to turn to
Tommy.
you next, because you have actually said in recent days that there are things you can get done with Republicans in the Senate. What can you get
Do
done
I
on
have an
gun control?
Instagram?
So let's start
I
by
do.
framing the
Hold
problem
on.
the right way. We
I'm
have
gonna
a
type it
gun
in the chat.
violence problem
Real
in
quick.
this country. The mass shootings are terrible, but they get all the headlines. Children die every day on streets, in neighborhoods, on playgrounds. People die from violence, from suicide and domestic abuse. We have a gun violence problem in this country, and we agree on many steps
got that,
we
Ryan?
can take to fix it. My view
That's my
on this
Twitter,
is
too.
it's not gonna be one and done on this. We're gonna do it, and we're gonna have to do it again, and we're gonna have to come back some more until we cut the number of gun
I'll take
deaths
free healthcare.
in this country significantly. But here's the deal, the question we need to ask is, when we've got
Look out for
this
you.
much support
Thank
across
you.
the country, 90% of
Got lots of
Americans
cool
want to
pictures on
see us do, I like registration.
Me in anime
Want to see us
costumes, too.
do background checks, want to get assault weapons off
Thank
the
you,
ground,
Tommy.
off the streets. Why doesn't it happen? And the answer is corruption, pure and simple. We have a Congress
Sure,
that is
I'll text you.
beholden to the gun
I can't text all
industry.
day though. I got a lot of stuff going on.
Unless we're willing to address
But I'll say hi to you.
that head on and roll back the filibuster, we're not going to
It's
get
like one of those
anything
food
done on
eating
guns.
videos with
I was
politics.
in the United States Senate.
Good combination,
when
huh?
54 senators said, let's do background checks,
I didn't
let's
get banned
get rid
from
of
Twitter.
assault weapons, and with 54
Got like
senators,
over 7,000 people.
it failed because of the filibuster. Until we attack the systemic problems, we can't get gun reform in this country. We've got to go straight against the industry, and we've got to change Congress so it doesn't
I didn't
just
touch
work
my
for the
phone.
wealthy and well-connected, so it
Touching my
works for the
Senator Warren, thank you. You bring
My
up eliminating the
iPad, and I
filibuster,
actually
which
do
means
clean
you would
these
need
things in
simply
special
a
ways
simple
all the
majority
time.
of Republican Senate to get something
But it is a
done. I
little
want
gross,
to
I'll
turn
admit it.
to Senator Sanders on this because you've said before of this, if Donald Trump
Hi,
supports
Brito.
ending the filibuster, which he's talked about himself, you should be nervous. Would you support ending the
These wings are
filibuster?
good.
No, but what I would support absolutely is passing major legislation, the gun legislation that people here are talking about, Medicare for all, climate change legislation that saves the planet. I will not wait for 60 votes to make that happen. And you could do it in a variety of ways.
Oh,
You
this
could
is
do that through
interesting.
budget reconciliation law. You have a vice president
Because I do
who will, in
cosplay a
fact,
lot.
tell the Senate what is
You know what cosplay is.
appropriate
I like
and
anime,
what is not,
so
what
I
is
dress
in
up.
order and what is
It's
not.
just fun. I'm
I
an
wanna get
artist,
back to
really.
a point that Elizabeth made, and that in fact, in terms of gun issues, picking up on Corey and Beto and everybody else, what we are looking at is a corrupt political system. And that means whether it is the drug companies or the insurance companies or the fossil fuel industry determining what's happening in Washington or
Bernie
in
or
this
Yang,
case.
I haven't made any
You got
decisions
an
that
NRA, which
they both
has
have interesting
intimidated
stances
the
though.
President
I'll
of
just
the
say that.
United States and the Republican leadership.
I think Yang is
I
very
am
interesting.
proud. I am proud that year after year, I had an F rating from the NRA.
Brito?
And as president, I will not be intimidated
I
by
think,
the NRA.
honestly,
Senator Sanders, thank you.
May I respond?
There's
who I think will actually have the best chance of winning
A lot of
primary
what's been happening here
is
in
Bernie
Texas. Only a few weeks ago,
and
the
Elizabeth
deadliest
Warren,
massacre of Latinos,
because there's a huge
Latinos
movement
in
towards
modern U.S. history happening in this state.
free
El Paso.
education and
So the fear
healthcare.
among Latinos, and you know this, is very
That's
real.
just,
So let me start
if I
with
was
an
going to
issue
say
that
I'm a
is
political
causing a lot
commentator,
of
that would be
division
my analysis.
in this country.
Because a lot of
Immigration.
people are very interested in them.
Vice
Yang
President
could
Biden,
come
as a
up.
presidential candidate
You
in
could.
2008,
And you never know.
you supported
I mean,
the
I don't want to
border
sit there
wall
and say
saying,
that's my
"Unlike most
100%. We still
Democrats, I
have
voted for 700 miles of fence."
a year
What you said.
to really worry about
Then
this.
you serve as vice president in an administration that deported 3 million people, the most ever in U.S. history. Did you do anything to prevent those deportations?
I really need to
You've been
wash
asked
my
this question
hands.
before and refused to answer,
You're
so
right,
let's
this is
go
gross.
once again. Are you prepared to say tonight that you and
Cleaning my
President
screen.
Obama made a mistake about deportations? Why should Latinos trust him?
What Latinos should look at is comparing this president to the president we have is outrageous, number one. We didn't lock people up in cages. We
Biden
didn't
hasn't
separate
gotten
families.
anywhere so far.
We didn't do all of those
I mean, you
things.
can ask that
Number
about
one.
Bernie.
Number
You can
two,
ask that about
Number two, by
Thank
the
you,
time
Mike.
this is the president came along.
You
with
could
the
ask
DACA
that about-
program. No one had ever done
Do you
that
think
before.
Trump is?
This
Do you
president
know how
sent
many
legislation
cases
to
are
desk
against
saying
Trump?
he wants to find a pathway
For the people who are
the
for
11
Trump, I
million
really wanna know
undocumented
why.
in the United States of America. This is the president who's done a great deal. So I'm proud to have served with him.
Why you think
What I
that
would do
all the
as
corruption
president
he's done is
several
going
more
to get
things,
play out?
because things have
And he's
changed.
going to win another
I would, in
presidency.
fact,
Even
make
if he runs
sure
a
that
presidency
there is-
again,
we
they're going
immediately
to try and
surge
impeach
to
him.
the border.
It's
All
going
those
to add
people
up.
are seeking asylum.
It's
They
going to
deserve be
happen.
heard. That's who we are.
I hate to tell
We're a
you all.
nation says if you want to
What
flee
goes up
and you're fleeing
has to go
oppression,
down.
you should come. I would
That's the way it
change the
goes.
order that the president just changed, saying women who were being beaten and
I'll be right
abused
back. I'm gonna
could
go
no
wash my
longer
hands.
claim that as a reason for asylum. And by the way, retrospectively, you know, the 25th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act is up. The
Nothing
Republican
against you
Congress
if you
has
support
not
him, as long as you're not
reauthorized
in here
it.
trying
Let's
to call
put
me a
pressure on them
liberal,
to pass the
all these
Violence Against
names and
Women
stuff
Act
like
now.
some other
Okay,
people.
go back.
You didn't answer the question. You make a mistake with those deportations.
The president did the best thing that was able to be done at the
How about
time.
you?
I'm the Vice President of the United States.
See, and they're talking about
Secretary
during
Castro,
Obama's term,
would you want to?
he had one of the highest numbers of deportations, and Trump supporters don't like Obama. I'm like, curious why you were pro-ICE and against Obama. But I'll be right back because I'm going to go wash my hands.
Yes, I was just telling you. So why should voters trust Democrats now? I mean, now it is even more difficult, as you know, because you need Republican votes in the Senate. So are you willing, for instance, to give up DACA or give up a path to citizenship, or even agree to build a wall in order to legalize 10.5 million undocumented immigrants?
Jorge, thank you very much for that question. And look, I agree that Barack Obama was very different from Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a dark heart when it comes to immigrants. He built his whole political career so far on scapegoating and fear-mongering and otherizing migrants, and that's very different for Barack Obama. But my problem with Vice President Biden, and Corey pointed this out last time, is every time something good about Barack Obama comes up, he says, oh, I was there, that's me too. And then every time somebody questions part of the administration that we were both part of, he says, well, that was the president. I mean, he wants to take credit for Obama's work, but not have to answer to any questions.
Vice President Biden,
I don't get that. Let me just say that I was the first candidate in early April to put forward an immigration plan. You know why? Because I'm not afraid of Donald Trump on this issue. I'm not going to backpedal. I'm not going to pretend like I don't have my own vision for immigration. So we're not going to give up DACA. We're not going to give up protections for anybody. I believe that on January 20th, 2021, we're going to have a Democratic president. We're going to throw out Mitch McConnell and John Cornyn and have a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House, and we're going to pass immigration reform within the first 100 days.
Vice President, 45 seconds.
I did not say I don't stand. I stand with Barack Obama all 8 years, good, bad, and indifferent. That's where I stand. I did not say I did not stand with him.
Okay, Senator Warren, hundreds of children have been separated from their parents at the border. And recently in Mississippi, we saw the largest immigration rate in a decade. You want to replace ICE, the agency in charge of rounding up undocumented immigrants. So how would you deal with the millions of immigrants who arrive legally but overstay their visas? And how would you stop hundreds of thousands of Central Americans who want to migrate to the U.S.?
Well, I start with a statement of principles, and that is, in this country, immigration does not make us weaker, immigration makes us stronger. I want to see us expand legal immigration and create a pathway to citizenship for our dreamers, but also for their grandparents and for their cousins, for people who overstayed student visas, and for people who came here to work in the fields. I want to have a system that is a path to citizenship that is fair and achievable. Down at the border, we've got to rework this entirely. A system right now that cannot tell the difference in the threat posed by a terrorist,
just looking at the last comment there,
and a 12-year-old girl is not a system that is keeping us safer, and it is not serving our values.
Mr. Yang,
Freedom, I voted for him twice too.
Because I think we have to look at all the pieces. Why do we have
that we got to think of a
lot
more than just the presidency when it comes down to voting too.
People in Central America who are suffering. We need to restore that help. We need to help establish and reestablish the rule of law.
Aren't we all sent by God?
People don't feel like they have to flee for their lives. We have a crisis that Donald Trump has created and hopes to profit from politically. We have to have the courage to stand up.
Really, even Trump is human.
It is true that in the last few years we have seen the most severe anti-immigrant measures, from putting kids in cages to limiting asylum for people fleeing gangs and domestic violence. But it is also true that about 1 million immigrants enter the U.S. legally every year. So are you willing to raise the number of legal immigrants from 1 million to 2 million per year? And should there be a merit system, as President Trump wants?
Yeah. Did you ask me? Oh, he said it. Okay. Sorry.
My father grew up on a peanut farm in Asia with no floor, and now his son is running for president. That is the immigration story that we have to be able to share with the American people. If you look at our history, almost half of Fortune 500 companies were founded by their immigrants or children of immigrants, and rates of business formation are much higher in immigrant communities. We have to say to the American people, immigrants are positive for our economic and social dynamism. And I would return the level of legal immigration to the point it was under the Obama-Biden administration. I think we have to compete for talent, and I am the opposite of Donald Trump in many ways. He says build a wall. I'm going to say to immigrants, come to America, because if you come here, your son or daughter can run for president. The water is great, and this is where you want to build a company, build a family, and build a life. This country has been a magnet for human capital for generations. If we lose that, we lose something integral to our continued success, and that is where I would lead as president.
Alcalde Pitt, tengo una pregunta para usted. Alcalde Pitt, 8 out of 10 Latinos in Texas were not shooting targeting men. This is according to a new Univision poll. President Trump has called Mexican immigrants rapists and killers, tried to ban Muslims from entering the country, and separated children from their parents. His supporters have chanted, build the wall and send her back.
Y'all see my
Do you
comment
think
there?
that people who support President Trump and his immigration policies are racist?
Anyone who supports this is supporting racism. Este es racismo y es sencillo.
Oh,
The
I
only
might see
people
you
who
on IG
actually
too,
buy
Mike.
into this president's hateful rhetoric around immigrants are people who don't know anything. We have an opportunity to build an American majority around immigration reform.
Paying
In my
attention.
community, a group of conservative Republicans
letting them
rallied around an individual, a
decide.
beloved local individual who was deported when he went
Build
into ICE
these
to try to
issues
get
up.
his
It's all
paperwork
about
sorted out because they never
bringing
thought
up
it would
the
happen
conversation
to
to
him.
everybody.
In some of the most conservative rural areas of Iowa, I have seen communities that embraced immigration.
Do you guys
grow
think that the
and inspire
Republican Party
part
or
of
an
my
independent
plan
should be running
for
against
revitalizing
Trump?
the economies of rural America includes community renewal visas that would
I do a
allow
lot.
cities and towns and counties that are hurting not only for jobs
I
but for
work really
population
hard.
to embrace
tried to say I
immigration
didn't
as we
earlier.
have in my city. You know, the only reason that South Bend is growing right now, after years of shrinking, is immigration. It's one of the reasons we acted, not waiting
Hey,
for
Freedom,
Washington,
I'm not
to
big on
create
abortion,
city-issued municipal
but I'm not
IDs
against
so that
it. I
people,
don't
regardless
understand
of
why
immigration status, in our city had the opportunity
we
to
don't
have the
have more
benefits
access
of
to prevent it.
identification. We have an opportunity to
If we're gonna talk
actually
about that, we gotta
get
prevent it
something
from
done.
happening.
But
And
we
we're not talking
cannot
about
allow this
abstinence,
to
'cause
continue
that
to
doesn't
be the
work.
same debate with the same arguments and the same clever lines, often
They're
among the
probably
same
not
people
bringing up
since
that
the last
subject,
real
though.
reform happened in the 1980s. We have to actually engage the American
right now they're talking
majority
about immigration
around
reform,
the
right?
opportunities for not just growth in small communities,
Well,
but
that's
our
good.
values of welcome, values of faith that all argue for
Do
us
you all
to
think that some
manage this
independents, some
humanely and in a
libertarians,
way
some
that marries our
other
values with our
Republicans
laws.
should be running
Congresista
them?
Beto O'Rourke, una pregunta para usted. In an interview 8 months ago, you were asked what to do with the so-called overstayers, people who
Yeah,
come to
it is a
and
big
then
issue.
stay.
It's a
And
very
you
big
said,
issue. It's
"I don't
hard.
know."
Like
Do you have an answer now?
people don't
I do,
understand
and if you read the rest of that
that
article,
for a
the
woman it's
Washington Post
emotional
that
too.
talked about
Hey Nate, good to
harmonizing
see you.
our entry-exit system with Mexico in the same way that we
Nate's
do
in
with
here.
Canada. I think that could help us to
He's
keep
almost
a
in all my
handle
live
on
chats.
visa overstays. But I think the larger question that we're
Three
trying to get
Republicans are
at
running?
is how do
I
we
need to look
rewrite
that up.
this country's immigration laws in our own image, in the
'Cause I haven't-
image
why
of
aren't
Houston,
they having
Texas, the
debates?
most
I wanna
diverse
hear
city
about it,
in the
I guess.
United States of America. In the image of El Paso, Texas, one of the safest cities in the United States of America. Safe, not despite the fact that we are a city of immigrants, safe because we are a city of immigrants. Conocemos que si queremos asegurar nuestras comunidades y nuestro país, necesitamos tratar a cada persona con respeto
We
y
all bring the
dignidad.
good vibes.
I will
Here.
lead an
I
effort
got
to
my-
make sure that we rewrite our immigration
necklace,
laws
good
in that
vibe
way.
necklace.
Never cage another child. Make sure that there is accountability and justice for the 7 lives lost under our
Oh,
care
really?
and our custody.
you,
but also face the fact that
I'm gonna have
Democrats
to
and
look that up.
Republicans
I wanna
alike
hear about that,
voted to
because
build
we
a
shouldn't
wall
just look
that has
at these
produced
debates.
thousands of deaths of people trying to cross to join family or to work a job. That we have been part of deporting people, hundreds of thousands, just in the Obama administration alone, who pose no threat to this country, breaking up their families. Democrats have to get off the back foot. We have to lead on this issue because we know it is right. Legalize America. Begin with those more than 1 million dreamers. Make them U.S. citizens right now in their true home country, and extend that to their parents, their sisters, and their brothers, and ensure that we have
Thank
a
you,
legal,
Freedom. I
safe,
appreciate
orderly
that.
system to
You're
come
cool.
to this country and add to our greatness here.
Jorge, thank you. We're going to take a quick break.
Maybe I
When we
can
come
live
back,
stream that
national
one and we
security
can
foreign
actually
policy,
get some
impact
attention
on
to it
American
because I
jobs
don't
and
hear
US
anything about
troops.
that.
have a Wi-Fi phone?
I'm using it. I'm using my Wi-Fi now. Yeah, because her phone was running out of power, so I'm using mine now. So, what do you guys think?
Is this a break or an intermission? Is this an intermission?
I think Biden is going, man.
Biden is gone. What do you need?
All right, let's see what everybody's got to say in here.
He hasn't been able to put one in though.
He hasn't, huh? Other people, what other people think?
I do agree.
What do you think?
I do agree.
You agree? Biden's on his way out? Nobody really, not functioning. What do you think, Andrea?
I don't follow politics too much, but I did come in today a complete like Biden fan. And I believe in a Beto fan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really, he took me when he spoke on the struggles of African Americans. And that's the first time I've heard a politician speak truly about it.
Historically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty
And
amazing.
until now, and that he won me over with that.
Yeah, maybe he's very knowledgeable about that and try to do changes and pass laws. I'm talking about his age, and I don't know if that it will affect his when if he become president.
She's talking about Beto, not about Biden.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought
Beto.
she said
Yeah,
that.
no,
Biden.
she meant,
Well, she went from
Beto. She said
Biden
she
to
came in
Beto.
See,
Right.
I'm like Biden now.
Biden's in your head.
What are your thoughts? Who are you liking? Any questions, thoughts, or anybody you're leaning towards voting for at this point? Or thoughts?
So is Beto, is he a socialist at all?
Straight up.
Can I have to look at that? I asked about the station, like, something like that.
Does anybody have a charger for an Android phone? A
No,
Galaxy?
sorry, I don't have that. I'm all iPhone.
Galaxy.
Grab a charger and I will be back to join you.
Say it again, Will.
So yeah, so you know, I'm a socialist at heart, and so I'm like sort of keying in on that. You know, so
Welcome to
me,
the debate party.
It's still going to be, you know, I need someone who's like a socialist. And capitalism to me is basically on its last legs and it's destroying the planet. So no one's very few people talk about dismantling capitalism.
Can I ask somebody to explain, because I have a few people on my chat right now who are talking about that they're capitalist, and so and I, you know, and there's some people throwing around labels and stuff they don't seem to understand. So can anybody explain why they would they want to change capitalism as it is right now? Is that it's too big of a question, huh?
No, it's a very fair one.
Where are you streaming from?
So you got
Streaming from YouTube.
Okay, what's the channel's name?
It's Classic 8 Designs. It's my channel.
Classic 8?
Yeah, Classic the number 8 and then Designs DESIGNS. Or you could just look me up under Michelle Dion Snyder SNIDER. Yeah, so we're doing the party on live right now.
What will
Okay, so to me, what has happened over the last 30 years,
Mhm.
maybe since Reagan, a lot of deregulation, so that a lot of people lost their high-paying union or otherwise kind of job,
Mhm.
and now, you know, the capitalists are saying, look, we really don't need your labor anymore. We have robots now, and they're saying things like, look, you know, we're okay with a two-caste system, the haves and the have-nots, and we're going to decide, you know, majority, probably 80% of the Americans are not going to be the haves, and only 20% will. So at that point, you know, your access to a better life than what your parents had decreases dramatically.
Yes.
So I'm saying that if you had socialism come in and say, look, you know, I get you weren't born into the have class.
Yeah.
But you still don't have to, you know, there's still a safety net that's going to keep you going to the very bottom and living like, you know, worse than a third world country. So I'm saying, yeah, we need a social net, safety net, treat people better than dogs.
There
And
you
I
go.
just think
There you
that that's really what time it is, because it's true, the capitalist no longer near labor.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm
We
saying.
are, and that's what something that Yang also talks about is automation. But you're not saying let's get rid of all of entrepreneurs and stuff like that, which is like a lot of people assume that socialism means that you get rid of, you know, of entrepreneurship, but it's more of you make sure that the living needs are provided.
Right. That's it. And so I'll leave because other people want to say stuff.
Yeah.
How are the living needs provided?
I'm sorry.
I said my question was how, under socialism, how are the living needs provided?
So let's look at two things, and he first of all kicked this off with what we're living in terms of this a pretense that there is scarcity. In fact, a lot of the conversation has been about, you know, playing around with this. And one of the things I think that Will's comments were addressing is that, look, this technology has done a double-edged sword. It does vanquish people in the paid workforce as we know it. I mean, we're looking at, in a very short amount of time, truck driving, which used to be, okay, the blue-collar job, you didn't need to have a big college education. It's going to be completely automated. And it's, you know, it can be a very high-paying area. And the problem isn't the automation. The problem is, what kind of political system do we have? Because if we're functioning economically on, you only get to take care of your family, you only get good education or health care if you have money. Well, what about if we take that challenge on and deal with the abundance that the technology provides and say, we're going to set this thing up where it doesn't matter what the education level is, what the income level is. If you're a human being, you get these things. That means we have to change the laws, because right now, those laws are harming increasing numbers of people. Let me give you a number. As we sit in this room, there's 140 million Americans who are either in poverty or near poverty. That reality, I mean, and many of them are entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
So,
true.
I mean, what it is that people do what they need to do in order to try and take care of themselves and their families. But they're still next to starvation. So what if we thought about this, brother? What if we think about a society where there's jobs? I mean, I think we got to think outside of the box, because it's not just our country. This is an international process that is happening, and we're not, even here, there's not the discussion about this level of structural change that you're going to need far more human beings in the paid workforce. You've got to change how are goods and services provided to men, women, and children who have no money. Who have no money. Because that's where we are right now. And that's not what the conversation is. So there's some people who are in between. Like I got some kids that got, we have kids that are doctors in our family. And of course their income is way, way different than I got a son who's a recovering addict. And he's been homeless for probably 20 years. In and out of homelessness, you know, because with his addiction and disability. Both of those realities, one family. That's the case all over this country. It's all over this. It's not that different. So how are we going to then accommodate? What they're doing is making us seem like the way that we accommodate is see each other as enemies. You speak a different language, you're an immigrant, you're taking something from me. That's malarkey. That's malarkey. But if the rulers can get us to think that, to get the so-called job, but the job isn't being taken by the immigrant. The job is being taken by the computers, the robots. And we need to think about how to address that differently, the way that Will was saying.
Yeah, and I know that they keep saying the cost, but when we talk about it, there's like, isn't it considered like a poor tax? So you actually pay for more in health insurance, in your rent, and all these things, and you're paying more taxes than corporations and then the people who are investors and stuff like that. So we're really talking about leveling the playing field, because a lot of people will talk about how people of corporations are they're the job providers, so they have to have tax cuts, but they're actually cutting jobs while they're getting those tax cuts, and they're automating things. So eventually we're going to be at a point where they have to start considering also part of capitalism is not just exploiting workers, but it's about having consumers. If you don't have workers, how are you going to have consumers?
You don't.
And so they're just gobbling up with the tax cuts and they're gobbling up all the money. And then what happens? You commit massive genocide, so you don't have to worry about all the problems, because if people, that's the way to eliminate the issues. And you divide and conquer all these people, and then they will have their money, and then they will make their society the way they want to.
Also, with the healthcare issue.
Yes.
You can't afford it, then you die.
Yeah, and I have had healthcare. Like, I don't have healthcare now, but when I have had healthcare, doctors didn't help me. They would say, you're too young or whatever, or you're delusional. Or after I had kids, they were like, oh, you're just postpartum. And I ended up having Graves' disease, and I almost died because of it. So, I don't have faith in the healthcare system either, because, my sociologist told me there's gatekeepers in the healthcare system. They will make sure that you cannot get these services that cost money.
So let's break that down one
And
more
he
time.
he has another question whenever you want to.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
But I wonder on the healthcare, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back over here too. But I think this is a great discussion already.
Somebody else gonna say something? Well, just briefly, just one thing. You guys know that Amazon did not pay any taxes last year.
Yeah.
They actually got a refund.
Yeah, they got a refund.
Amazon
is making money from left, right, up, and down.
That's our laws.
They own Whole Foods. They own all kinds of stuff.
Laws that allow them to write off all these things.
All right, I'm gonna go look at the chat comments.
Yeah, I know.
I'm glad you're enjoying yourself.
On the healthcare, when you hear them
At least
say,
we hear different views, and then if you have some ideas to bring in, let me know, because I've wanted to own a business. I'm not against being able to do that.
Not have healthcare if we go to Medicare for all. I want you to keep in mind, a huge number, something like 50 to 70 million of that 150 million people never use their private insurance because their deductibles, their premiums are so high. $5,000.
You hear 'em?
$6,000. They never use it.
Yeah, I'm trying to do. It's hard to get a good camera view.
Both ends against the middle. They're making us believe that people are going to lose something. But ask any of your families that might live in the South
You see it right here? That's what it looks like.
How many hospitals have closed?
If you look it
They
up
have no
this way,
access.
you should be able to
If
find it.
anyone in their family has a heart attack, a stroke,
And then you can also chat with all these people in here.
be there in minutes. They can't get to a facility for an hour. That's a death sentence. That reality is all over this country. So who cares if you have a little paper that says you got United Healthcare and you have no clinic, you have no hospital. That's what these guys aren't even talking about. We have to talk, because that's what our lives, what Michelle raised, what our lives are. But Medicare for all would take the problem is it's privatized, and it would move one part of these industries out of our lives, and we would be in charge. That's important.
I agree with you, Brina. I appreciate it. You're a cool one right there.
I figure if I'm gonna be here for 6 years and I come here,
Because we can all learn from each
I'll
other.
catch on.
It's not, yeah, you know some of it. You know some of it. It's just that you
Right,
don't
Nay?
always, as workers, we don't always get this kind of space to, help us.
I'm glad you all are getting involved in this. This is what I love.
Some more, but that's why these spaces are so important, and make more spaces to do more in depth, the kind of way that
And we
Michelle
have an
is
online
doing that
space.
online and stuff. That's so important.
Yeah, this is my little community over here too.
Yeah,
So we're all sharing. They're commenting and they're asking questions. So that's why I wanted, because I have a few people who are even Trump supporters, and one of them is really respectful, and he said he liked our comment.
I want to negotiate trade with unions at the table. I want to negotiate it with small farmers at the table. I want to negotiate it with environmentalists
I'm back, yay!
at the table. I want to negotiate it with human rights activists at the table.
All right.
And you ask
I'm glad I didn't lose everybody. Oh man, that was a hot second there. I had to get it off the internet because our school internet is not that good. Let me get a better view here for everybody.
have the capacity to say right here in America, you want to come sell goods to American consumers.
How's everybody going? I see somebody new. Hey, what's up?
You've got to raise your environmental standards so our companies can compete on a level playing field. We can use trade
Nathan.
not to undermine
I'm not gonna comment.
workers, and not to undermine American farms, and not to undermine small businesses in this country. We can use trade.
And I appreciate everybody making good comments in here. Try not to cuss if possible because YouTube like will
Well, first of all,
make your comment
I have
invisible.
no criticism of that more than just looking at where we are now, which is that we've got a guy in the White House
I
who's
was
been
just
erratic.
telling that they voted for Trump here and they were listening to us respectfully, so they were like, oh, that's great. Like they want to have conversations with every. That sucks if that didn't show up because that was a really good moment, right?
Saying we need to export American products, not American jobs. And to do that, we have to have a meaningful trade policy. I am not a protectionist Democrat. Look, we need to sell. We need trade policies.
And that's also why I
and
wanted
allow
to talk
that
about the
happen.
capitalism
You
as well.
asked earlier about China.
So if you guys have more
It's a
questions, we could
complicated
probably ask more
relationship.
questions
We have
and
to
bring them
hold
into
China
this group.
accountable. They steal our products, including our intellectual property. They dump substandard products into our economy. They need to be held accountable. We also need to partner with China on climate and the crisis that presents. We need to partner with China on the issue of North Korea. I am on, and I think the only person on the stage, the Senate
I always have
Intelligence
homework
Committee
to
and the
do,
Senate
too.
Homeland Security Committee. We
I have to
need
write
to
a whole
partner on
article
the issue of
tomorrow.
North Korea. But the bottom line is this, Donald
It's not
Trump
a cute face.
in office on trade policy. You know, he reminds me of that guy in The Wizard of Oz, you know, when you pull back the
I'm
curtain,
in
it's a really
California,
small
Oakland,
dude.
California, where actually Kamala is from. Wait, what did she say? Wait, what did she say?
Small dude.
Oh, no.
The average American today.
I don't think he's a real Republican, no.
And worker productivity.
He's a businessman.
Stop making a penny more than he or she made 45 years ago.
It is a rough city, I'm not
And
gonna
one
lie.
of the reasons
It needs
is
a lot.
that for
Needs a lot of
decades
love.
we have had disastrous trade policies. I gotta say
Nay.
to my good friend Joe Biden.
It's okay if you
Joe
gotta
and
go
I
study.
strongly disagree on trade. I helped lead the opposition to NAFTA and PNTR, which cost this country.
Andrew Yang has some really interesting ideas. I would totally look into those. I want to. He talks about automation the most out of anybody, and that is the future. We need to talk about the future of jobs being automated, and there are all kinds of jobs that are being automated. Even engineering, even writers are being automated. Can you believe that?
Trade policy is a tweet at 3 o'clock in the morning. What we have got to do is develop a trade policy that represents workers, represents the farmers in the Midwest and elsewhere who are losing billions right now because of Trump's policy. A trade policy which understands that if a company shuts down in America
Yeah,
and goes
750 is.
abroad,
Everything has gone up, right? If everything goes up, if the costs go up, the wages have to go up. There's no way that people can live. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah, well, look, we're either gonna make the policy or China's gonna make the rules of the road. We make up 25% of the world economy. We need another 25% to join us. And I think Senator Warren is correct. At the table has to be labor, and at the table have to be environmentalists. The fact of the matter is, China, the problem isn't the trade deficit. The problem
Have
is
a
they're
good night,
stealing
Nate.
our intellectual
Good luck
property.
studying, too.
The problem
I
is
know
they're
how hard that
violating
is.
the WTO. They're dumping steel on us. That's a different issue than whether or not they're dumping agricultural products
Good
on us.
vibes and
In
good
addition to that,
blessings.
we're in a position where if we don't set the rules, we in fact are going to find ourselves with China setting the rules. And that's
This
why we
is in
need
a
to organize
classroom,
the world
and some of
to
these
take
people are
on
students,
China, to
including
stop the
myself,
corrupt
and there's
practices
also an
that are
instructor
underway.
here.
Senator Booker, close out this round.
Sure. There's one point we're really
Quite a few
missing
students,
on
and there's
the stage
faculty
right now,
for this
which
community
is
college here.
the fact that Donald Trump's America First policy is actually an America isolated, an America alone policy. From trade to battling China to the global crisis of climate change, the challenges in the Middle East, he is pulling us away from our allies, out of the Iran deal, out of the Paris Climate Accords. And on trade, he's deciding to take on China, while at the
can
same
ask them, but I
time
doubt they
taking
think
on
that
tariff
rich people
battles
care about
with
him at
all of
all.
our allies.
Nobody
have
here
him
has actually
using
formed a
national
strong opinion
security
yet.
waiver to put tariffs on Canada. Now look,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
the only
almost
person on the
7 here.
stage that finds Trudeau's hair very menacing, but they are not
a national security threat. We cannot go up against China alone. This is a
Nobody
president that has
taking
a better
California,
relationship
sorry.
with dictators like
We're not
Duterte
doing
and
that.
Putin than he does with Merkel
California's
and Macron. We are the
crazy.
strongest nation on the planet Earth. And
Have
our
you
strength
seen
is
it?
multiplied and magnified when we stand with our allies in common cause and common purpose. That's how we beat China. That's how we beat climate change on the planet Earth. And that's how American values are the ones that lead on issues of trade and workers' rights.
George, thank you. I want to turn now to our troops overseas into America's longest war in Afghanistan. U.S. talks with the
Talk about
Taliban
war.
are dead, according to the president.
I know
Secret
pretty
talks
much
at
everybody
Camp
gotta
David
be
have been
against
canceled
war.
before they could happen. Many of you have weighed in on that already. So
I feel like
I'm
we
going to pass
wasted
that
so
tonight
much money
to what
on
all
war.
of you have promised on the campaign trail. Many
It's
of you
like
on the
probably
stage
one of
have
my
said
biggest pet
you bring the
peeves.
troops home in your first term. Others have said in your first year.
Oh, Cory
Senator
Booker.
Warren, we all know the presidency is much different from the campaign trail. President Obama wanted to bring the troops home. President Trump promised to bring the troops home. And you have said of Afghanistan, let's help them reach a peace settlement. It is time to bring our troops home, in your words, starting right now. Would you keep that promise to bring the troops home starting right now with no
I think
deal
a few
with
people
Taliban?
talked about climate
Yes.
change.
And I'll tell you why.
Exactly mention
What
global
we're
warming.
doing right now in Afghanistan is not helping the safety and security of the United States. It is not helping the safety and security of the world. It is
The Bay
not
Area.
helping the safety and security of
I believe it's about
Afghanistan.
35%
We need to bring
different
our
Asian
troops home.
populations.
And then we need
And
to
a lot
make
of
a
them do
big shift.
have wealth.
We
Some of them are
cannot
natives,
ask
and a lot of
our
them don't have
military
wealth.
to keep
It's kind of
solving
a good
problems
mix
that
here, though, in the
cannot
Bay
be
Area.
solved militarily. We're not gonna bomb our way to a solution in Afghanistan.
Right,
We need
Nathan, I would have
treat
to
the
agree with you
problem
on that
of
one.
terrorism as a
They're trying
worldwide
to
problem.
get somebody in
And
the
that
middle
means
and a
we
moderate
need to be working with all
because
of
they
our allies.
feel like that that's the best
Our
bet.
European allies, our Canadian allies, our Asian allies, our
I don't know, I
allies
feel
in
like
Africa and in South
a lot of people
America.
want extreme
We
change, so
need to
moderate
work
doesn't tend to work in that case.
to root out terrorism. It means
Hey, what's
using
up?
all of our tools.
Another Californian.
It means economic investment. It means expanding our diplomatic efforts instead of hollowing out the State Department and deliberately making it so we have no eyes and ears in many of these countries. We need a foreign policy that is about our security and about leading on our values.
Senator Warren, a quick follow on that, because top U.S. leaders, military leaders on the ground in Afghanistan told me you can't
I
do
haven't
it without a
even
deal
really
with the
honestly
Taliban. You
paid
just said
attention to everything.
you would bring them home. What if they told you that? Would you
It's been
listen to
interesting,
advice?
but I feel like
was
we're
in Afghanistan
hearing a
with
lot of
John
the same
McCain.
stuff.
2 years ago, this past summer, I think it may have been Senator McCain's last trip before he was sick. And I talked to people, we did. We talked to military leaders, American and local leaders. We talked to people on the ground and asked the question, the same one I asked on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Every time one of the generals comes through, show me what winning looks like. Tell me what it looks
I think Bernie couldn't.
And what you hear is a lot of
I think Elizabeth Warren might have a harder
because
time.
no one can describe it. And the reason no one can describe it
Good luck with your
is because
homework. I
the
feel you.
problems
I
in
understand.
Afghanistan
Have a good night.
are not problems that can be solved by a military. I
Yeah.
have 3 older brothers who all served in the military. I understand firsthand the kind of commitment they have made. They
Fire
will do
Lord,
anything we ask them to
Sometimes I'm
do.
kind of bored,
But we
honestly. It's the
cannot
same thing
ask
over
them
and
to
over again.
solve problems that they alone cannot solve. We need to work with the rest of the world. We need to use our economic tools. We need to use our diplomatic tools. We need to build
this
with
is
our
stuff-
allies.
it's common
And we
sense.
need to make the whole world safer, not keep troops bombing in Afghanistan.
Senator Warren, thank you.
Did you guys
I do
see
wanna
on The
stay
View
on
when
this,
Whoopi
and I wanna turn to
Goldberg
Mayor
liked my
Buttigieg,
video?
Because you're the only veteran on this stage who served in Afghanistan. We heard in recent days from General Joseph Dunford, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who said in recent days, I'm not going to use
My
the
live
word
chat.
withdrawal right now. It's our judgment the Afghans need support to deal with a level of violence. If he's not even using the word withdrawal, would you put your promise to bring troops home in the first year on hold to follow the advice?
You know, I served under General Dunford, way under General Dunford in Afghanistan. And today, September 12th, 2019, means that today you could be 18 years old enough to serve, and have not been alive on 9/11.
Sure.
We have got to put an end to endless.
Too long.
And the way we do it is see
Way
to
too
it
long. I
that
kind of saw
that
it happening
country will
after
never
9/11,
again
honestly.
be
Seemed like an
used for an
excuse.
attack against our homeland, and that does not require an open-ended commitment of ground troops. Let me say something else, because if there's one thing we've learned about
on
Afghanistan,
9/11.
from Afghanistan, it's that the best way not to be caught up in endless war is to avoid starting one in the first place. And so, when I am president,
Too late to stop that.
an authorization for the use of military force will have a built-in 3-year sunset. Congress will be required to vote, and a president will be required to go to Congress to seek an authorization. Because if our troops can summon the courage to go overseas, the least our members of Congress should be able to do is summon the courage to take a vote on whether they ought to be there. By the way, we also have a president right now who seems to treat troops as props, or worse, tools for his own enrichment. We saw what's going on
haven't you
with
noticed
flights
that?
apparently being routed through Scotland just so people can stay at his hotels.
Yeah,
I'll tell you,
the
as a
whole Air
military
Force.
officer, the very first thing that
Whole
goes
Air
through your mind,
Force being
the first time
forced
you
to
ever
stay
make
in
eye
Trump
contact
hotels
with somebody that you were
over and over
responsible
again. That's
for
such a
and
waste of money. It's
is
crazy.
do not let these men and women
That
down.
is when
This
I say
president
the
is doing
corruption
exactly
is going to
that.
fall back
I will
because
not.
it's
Mayor
unconstitutional.
Buttigieg, thank you. I want to turn to Vice President Biden because
Just
the
in time for a
concerns
Trump
about
supporter to
any
pop in.
possible vacuum
What do
being
you think about
created in Afghanistan
him
if
using
you
the
pull the U.S.
troops
troops out has been
to fund
heightened
his
by what we've
hotels?
seen in recent days on the ground in Iraq. When you were Vice President,
American
President Obama turned to you to bring the
money
troops home from Iraq. You have said on the campaign
going to
trail,
Trump
quote, I
hotels.
made sure the President turned to me and said, Joe, get our combat troops out of Iraq.
Is
There
that
was a
really
major
appropriate?
drawdown of U.S. troops, and then ISIS
For
seized
him
by
to
some
talk about
estimates
that?
40% of the territory in Iraq. You then had to send thousands of troops back in. Was it wrong to pull out of Iraq that quickly, and did the move actually help ISIS take hold?
No, it wasn't wrong to pull up. I want to answer the Afghanistan question. I've been in and out of Afghanistan, not with a gun.
Elected
and I
in
admire my friend,
1972 as a senator.
for his service.
That's what it said.
But I've been out of Afghanistan, I think more than anybody
It's
on
Joe
this,
Biden.
and it's an open secret. You reported a long time ago, George, that I was opposed to the surge
Joe Biden been in this way
Afghanistan.
longer than I've
The
been
whole
alive.
purpose of going to Afghanistan was to not have a counterinsurgency, meaning that we're going to put that country together. It cannot be put together. Let me say it again. It will not be put together. It's 3 different countries. Pakistan owns the 3 counties, the 3 provinces, and the east. They're not any part of it. The Connies run it. I
Do you
would go on
guys
and
know
on, but
I
here's
have a
the
gun?
point. The point is that it's a counter-terrorism strategy. We
I
can
only turned
prevent
it
the
in if
United
everybody
States
else
from being the
does.
victim of terror coming out of Afghanistan by providing for bases, insist the Pakistanis provide bases for us to airlift from and to move against
I'm not
what we
sure,
know.
Little
We don't
Wave, if
need
there's an
those
amendment
troops
for
there.
that, but
I would bring them
we
home.
do
Joe
keep
Dunford's a fine
promising
guy,
them
but this
that
has
we're
been an
going to
internal
take care of
argument
them
we've had
through our
for 8
health,
years.
through
With regard to
healthcare,
Iraq, the fact of the matter
housing,
is
education.
that, I should have never voted to give Bush
Oftentimes we're
authority
kind of
to go ahead and
failing
do what
them
he said he
quite
was
a
gonna
bit.
do. The AUMF was designed, he
My
said,
whole family
to
is a
go
lot
ahead
of
and give
veterans,
the
so I
Security
do
Council to vote
understand a lot of
enough
this.
to allow inspectors to go in to determine whether or not anything was being done with
If I
chemical
had gotten
weapons
into
or
the
nuclear
military
weapons.
service like they
And
wanted,
when
I
that
would have been in
happened,
just
he
in
went ahead and
time
went
to go to
anyway
the
without
Iraq
any of that
War.
proof.
Ooh.
I said something
I had a
that
good
was
feeling
not
not
meant
to
the
go.
way I said it. I said from that point on, what I was arguing against in the beginning,
Like, I wouldn't mind
once he
serving the
started
country at all.
put
I
the
just
troops
don't want to
in,
do it for
was that
needless
in
wars.
fact we were doing it the wrong way. There was no
Hey,
plan.
Riley.
We should not be engaged. We didn't have the people with us. We didn't have our alliance. We didn't have allies with us, etc. And it was
Trump and
later
his
when we
supports
came
moved to
into office,
Mar-a-Lago
Barack
and make their own
the
country.
president turned to me and said, Joe,
I don't know
when they
if
said we had a
Mar-a-Lago
plan to get
members
out,
would be
to
happy
turn
about
the
that,
whole
honestly,
security
even
center.
though
Joe will organize this,
They all
get the
love
troops
Trump.
home. My son spent a year in Iraq, and I understand. And we were right to get the combat troops out.
yeah, I have a
The
gun
big
freedom.
mistake that was made,
I honestly do.
which
I
we
could probably
predicted,
show it on my
was
live
that
chat
we would
sometime.
not have a circumstance
But I need to
where
learn
the
more how to
Shia
use it. I wanted to
and
learn
the
how to use it,
Kurds
and I
would
kind of
work
do like
together
shooting the
to
gun,
keep
honestly.
ISIS from from moving in.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. I want to turn to Senator Sanders on this because the concern over Afghanistan is very similar to what
To
we
me,
saw
it
in
was
Iraq
more like
when
I
the
want
troops
to learn
came out.
because there's so many
ISIS
people that
filled
have
vacuum.
guns that I
What
feel
do you
like you
make
have to
of
learn how to
people
protect
out there
yourself.
who
I
are
also
worried
learned
that
how
if
to
we pull out
kickbox.
U.S. troops too quickly from Afghanistan, it will
So I know
create
how to
safe
fight.
haven all over over again, like the plotters of 9/11.
David, let me answer that, but let me just comment on something that the Vice President said. You talked about the big mistake in Iraq and the surge The truth is, the big mistake, the huge mistake, one of the big differences between you and me, I never believed what Cheney and Bush said about Iraq.
We're getting a lot of.
And help lead the opposition.
Did y'all believe it?
And it's sad to say,
Cheney. Oh my gosh.
had the feeling
Dick Cheney.
that there would be massive
Remember when he shot
destabilization in that
somebody?
area if we went into that war. As the former chairman,
If everybody has a gun, I hope they know how to use it.
want to pick up on
And I
what Pete
hope
said,
that they don't
we
use it in
cannot
anger
express our
or committing
gratitude
suicide.
to all
Because
of the
that's
men and
actually the
women
most
who
common
put their
death
lives
for
on the
guns.
line to defend us, who have responded to the call of duty. But I think also I am the only person up here to have voted against all three of Trump's military budgets.
Shotgun.
We have to spend $750 billion.
As long as nobody has
a
any
year on military,
AK-47s, I'm worried about
when we
y'all.
don't even know who our enemy is. What we have got to do is bring this world together. Bring it together on climate change. Bring it together in fighting
42.
against terrorism.
Born
And make it
1977,
clear that we
October
as a
1st.
planet, as a global community, will work together to
I don't
help
mind.
countries around the
I'm
world
fine with how I am. I'm proud that I
rebuild their
made it this
struggling
far.
economies and do
I don't look
everything
too
that we
bad for
can
42, right?
to rid the world of terrorism, but dropping bombs on Afghanistan and Iraq was not the way to do it.
Senator Sanders, thank you. I want to take this to Mr. Yang.
Little
You
way
share the
the
stage, as you
Bahamas
know,
are
when we talk
destroyed.
about troops in Iraq
Before it
and
was
Afghanistan, with
Puerto
the Vice
Rico.
President who was in the Situation Room,
But there are
with
a lot of
senators who
similar
are on the
places,
Senate
and
Armed
they keep
Services, the
rebuilding.
Foreign Relations Committees. We have an Afghanistan veteran who is on the stage tonight.
Yeah.
As you share the stage with these candidates, what makes you the most qualified on this stage to be
Take care
Commander-in-Chief?
of myself.
I've signed a pledge to end the forever wars. We've been in a state of continuous
yes,
armed
Nathan,
conflict
they
for
all know
18
about
years, which is not
barbecue
what the
bacon.
American people
They'd
want.
like to tell
We
everybody
have to
about
start
it. Like
owning
some
what we
people
can
brag
and
about
can't
it. It's
do.
funny.
We're not very good at
I don't
rebuilding
actually care
countries.
about talking about it.
And if you want proof, all you have to do is look within our
Everybody
own
else will be like,
country of
and
Puerto Rico.
she shot
Come on
this
now.
video.
We've spent trillions of dollars to unclear
what's the accent?
benefits, lost thousands of lives, and thank you, Pete, for your service. And the goal has to be to rebuild the relationships that have made America strong for decades. I would lead our armed forces with restraint and judgment. What the American people want is simply a president who has the right values and point of view, and they can trust to make the right decisions when it comes to putting our young men and women into harm's way. And that's what I would do as president.
Mr. Yang, thank you. Jorge?
Thank you very much. Vamos a hablar de América Latina. You haven't been asked about Latin America in the previous debate, so let's begin. Senator Sanders, one country
Get to know
where
me on
many
here.
immigrants are arriving from is
A lot of people
Venezuela.
wanna get to know me
A recent
someday.
UN fact-finding mission found that thousands have been disappeared, tortured,
Or when you
and killed by
follow me
government
on
forces
social
in
media, you'll
Venezuela.
see a lot of my posts.
You admit that Venezuela does not have free elections, but still you refuse to call Nicolás Maduro un dictador, a dictator. Can you explain why, and what are the main differences between your kind of socialism and the one
we go,
being
socialism.
imposed in Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua?
Like he's
First
smiling.
of all, let me be very clear. Anybody who does what Maduro does is a vicious tyrant. What we need now is
Yeah,
international and
hurricanes, the
regional
nuclear
cooperation
hurricanes are getting
for
more
free
severe.
elections in Venezuela, so that the people of that country can create their own future. In terms of democratic socialism, to equate what goes on in Venezuela with what I believe is extremely unfair. I'll tell you what I believe in terms of democratic socialism. I agree with what goes on in Canada and in Scandinavia, guaranteeing health care to all people as a human right. I believe that the United States should not be the only major country on earth not to provide paid family and medical leave. I believe that every worker in this country deserves a living wage and that we expand the trade union movement. I happen to believe also that what to me democratic socialism means is we deal with an issue that we do not discuss enough, Jorge, not in the media and not in Congress. You got 3 people in America owning more wealth than the bottom half of this
So you know
country.
why Venezuela is not a good model for socialism, because socialism is not about exploitation, and Maduro is exploiting Venezuela gas.
What we should be doing
the government there owns gas. That's not socialism. So how is that for public need? It's not. It's for profit. So it's actually not real socialism. So whenever people say Venezuela is socialist and that's an example, just because they call themselves socialist because they own their gas lines doesn't mean that they're a proper form of socialism. Socialism is supposed to be for the needs of the people, like,
and
you know,
also here in the
healthcare,
United States, offer temporary
education,
protected status,
food,
TPS,
housing.
to Venezuelans. That is something that the Trump administration has failed to do for all of his big talk about
Is Puerto Rico a tax haven? I know Switzerland and quite a few, there's a lot of tax loopholes, and that's a really good topic to talk about. I used to be in the stock market, and I know about all that
so that
stuff.
people can find safety and opportunity at home instead of having to make the dangerous journey to the United States. And under my administration, we're going to put renewed focus on Latin America. It makes sense.
I just think he has some
We have a
interesting
lot of things
ideas.
in common. It also makes sense that because
So we have Julian Castro up
we
right
have a
now.
country like China that is going around the world to places like Africa and Latin America, making their own relationships, strengthening those. The United States needs to strengthen its partnerships in Latin America immediately, and I will.
Communism is the ownership of government on all resources. It doesn't really leave room for capitalism or any kind of
Way
entrepreneurship.
to help the environment. You're a vegan since 2014. That's obviously a personal choice. But President Trump and Brazil's President Bolsonaro are concerned that climate change regulations could affect economic growth.
Yeah, I don't know if
So should
taxi
more
drivers make
Americans,
more than doctors in
including
Cuba,
those
but they
here in
have
Texas
almost a
and
cure for
Iowa,
cancer in Cuba
follow your
with their
diet?
socialism.
You know,
There's a
first of all, I want to
communism
say
up
no.
there. They have a lot of issues
Translate
though.
that into Spanish.
I wouldn't say, I think their healthcare system is great because they actually do research, and that's something that we don't do enough.
Look, let's just be clear. The factory farming going on that's assaulting this corporate consolidation of the agriculture industry, one of the reasons why I have a bill to put a moratorium on this
That's
kind
right,
of
Little
corporate
Wave.
consolidation
You know what you're talking
is
about.
because this factory farming is destroying and hurting our environment, and you see independent family farmers being pushed out of business because of the kind of incentives we are giving that don't line up with our values. That's what I'm calling for. But I want to switch because we don't have a crowded debate stage. We were talking about Afghanistan and Iraq. It annoys me that we had a conversation about our troops overseas and we didn't say one word about veterans in our country. We have a shameful reality in America that we send people off to war and they often come home with invisible wounds, hurts, and harms. They're disproportionately homeless. You hear stories about women waiting for months for gynecological care through the VA.
Right, homeless.
As we, as a country, understand that we are not going to solve every
But only
problem
for
with this
homeless
outrageous
veterans.
increased
Why
militarism.
isn't homelessness
And
talked
we also
about?
make sure that we stand up for the people that stood
Do
for
you
us.
all live in
We
cities where
end
there's a
our
lot of
national
homelessness?
anthem
We
with
live in
Home of the
Oakland,
Brave.
one of
It's
the
about
most,
time we make this a better home
the
for
biggest
our bravest.
epidemics of homelessness in this country.
Hurricane Harvey hit this town 2 years ago.
So it's a
and
big
not
deal
only
for
the
us
Amazon
because we
burning,
can't
Greenland
afford
is melting at a
any
record
housing
pace.
out here.
The last 5 years have been the hottest ever recorded. And we have a viewer's question about this. What meaningful action will you take to reverse the effect of climate change? And can we count on you to follow through if your donors are against it?
California.
Yes, we
Yeah,
will
what's
follow
that?
through regardless of the political consequences or who it offends.
Chris
Because
Jericho.
this is the very future of our planet and our ability for our
Top
children
three, Dom.
and grandchildren to be able to survive on it. We will make sure that
still
we get to
haven't made
net
a
zero
choice of even
greenhouse
top three
gas
yet.
emissions no later than
I'm
the
gonna be
year
like one of those
2050.
people that are gonna wait
We
till
are
the last
halfway
minute.
there by 2030, that we mobilize $5 trillion
really wanna give
over
people
the
a
next
chance to
10
debate
years
and
to
talk
do that,
about
that we
this.
invest
I wanna hear
here
all the ideas.
in
I'm
Houston,
gonna set them
Texas
all
with
up.
pre-disaster mitigation grants to protect those communities that are vulnerable to flooding, given the fact that this town has seen 3 500-year floods in just 5 years. You'd like to think you're good for 1,500 years, but you're not. They're coming faster and larger and more devastating
There you go.
than ever.
We're
We're
talking
also
about
gonna make sure
hurricanes
that
and
we
floods.
free ourselves from independence on fossil fuels and embrace renewable wind and
That is
solar energy
climate change right
technology,
there.
as well as the high-paying, high-skill, high-wage jobs that come along with that.
And then we're going to pay farmers
Yeah,
for the
and
environmental
that's not
services that
probably-
they want to provide. Planting cover crops, keeping more land under conservation, using no-till farming. Regenerative agriculture can pull carbon out of the air and can drive it and sequester it into the soil. That's the way that we're going to meet this challenge, and we're going to bring everyone into the solution.
Many of you want to comment? Let's try to see if we can go very fast, Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you. This is the existential crisis of our time. It's, you know, that movie, The Day After Tomorrow?
Oh, yeah.
It's today. We have seen a warming in our
There's the
world
people
like
liking it.
never before.
Klobuchar.
We're seeing flooding in the Midwest, flooding in Houston, fires in the West. And I think having someone leading the ticket from the Midwest will allow us to talk about this in a different way and get it done. On day one, I will get us back into the International Climate Change Agreement. On day two, I will bring back the clean power rules that President Obama had worked on. On day three, I will bring back the gas mileage standards. You can do all that without Congress, which is good. On
I
day
live
4,
in
5,
Oakland,
and
California.
6, I will, working with Congress and mayors
And I
and
don't like
business
the
people
cold,
all over
so
the country,
you won't see me in
introduce
blizzards.
sweeping legislation to get at that 2050 goal. And on day 7, you're supposed to rest, but I won't.
Senator
This is
Warren.
what we need to do if we're going to get at climate
It's like
change.
they're
We
like,
have to
okay,
take
thank you.
this on as a crisis that's happening right now.
Senator Warren, should American foreign policy be based around the principle of climate change?
Yes.
Denver,
We need to
Colorado.
work
That's a
on
place
every
I'd like
front
to.
on
I'd like to
climate
visit
change.
Wyoming
It
too.
is
I'd like to
the
visit.
threat
I really
to
would.
every
I would
living
totally give it a
thing on
chance.
this planet, and we are
I
running
bet
out
you
of
they're all
time.
pretty
Every time the scientists
beautiful
go
out
back,
there
they say we have
in
less
Denver.
and less time than we thought we had. But that means we've got to use all the tools. One of the tools we need to use are our regulatory tools. I have proposed, following Governor Inslee,
We have a police
that
number.
we by 2028 cut all carbon emissions from new buildings, by 2030 carbon emissions
As long
from
as they're
cars, and by
protecting
2035
everybody,
all
I'm fine
carbon
with that.
emissions from the manufacture of electricity. That alone,
Oil
those
state,
three
isn't that
will
like
cut
Texas?
our emissions
Or is-
here in the United States by 70%. We can do this. We also
Wyoming
need
is
to
an oil
help
state, huh?
around the world to clean, but
I would say
understand this one
hello.
more time.
Much
Why
love to you.
doesn't it happen?
Thank
As long as Washington is paying more attention to money than it is to our future, we can't make the changes we need to make. We have to attack the corruption head on so that we
Corruption.
can save our planet.
Senator Harris, 45 seconds.
When I think about this issue, it really is through the lens of my baby nieces who are 1.5 and 3 years old.
Hey,
When
what's
I
up,
look at
Illinois?
what is going to be the world if we do
Welcome.
nothing when they turn 20, I'm really scared.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've been in the United States Senate for now the last
I
2.5
haven't heard of
years,
any
and I look
Republicans
at
on here. There
our
was a few
counterparts,
Trump supporters,
the Republicans in the
a few
United States Senate,
libertarians, I think, but
they
they
must
didn't
be
really
looking
say
at
any.
their
There were a
children,
few
and then when they look
independents.
at the mirror, I
I've
don't
heard
know what they
independents in
see,
here.
but it's a lack of
We have a
courage.
conservative. Yep.
And this is an issue that, yes, it
There's a
represents
lot
an
of different
existential
people in
threat. It is also something we can do something about. This is a problem that was created by
welcome you
human
all.
behaviors. And we can change our behaviors in a way that saves our planet. I've seen it happen. In California, I took on, as the
Question,
Attorney
do you
General
all
of
believe in
California, I
climate
ran
change?
the second largest Department of Justice in the United States. Second only to the United States Department of Justice. I took on the big oil companies, and we saw progress.
That's gonna be
If any of you have been
interesting.
to Los
Okay.
Angeles 20 years ago, you'll remember that sky was
I've been
brown.
to a few
You go
pro-Trump
there now,
rallies,
the
and
sky
it's
is blue.
quite
You know
a lot of
why?
energy. I can
Because
see why
leaders
people like it.
decided to lead, and we took on these big fossil fuel companies. We have some of the most important
So we
and
have one
strongest
no
ones in the
and
country.
one highly
And we
believe in
made a
climate
difference.
change.
And my point being, I've done it before, and I will lead as
I do
president
believe
on
we
this
are
issue because we have no
destroying
time.
our
The
planet
clock
with
is
a lot of
ticking,
trash
but we
and
need
poison
courage and we
and
need
stuff like
courageous
that.
leadership. We can get this done.
Mr. Yang.
So to follow up on what Elizabeth
So even
said,
out
why are
here,
we
we
losing
feel
to
the
the
difference
fossil
in our
fuel
weather.
companies? Why are we losing to the gun
There's certain
lobby and
places
the
that
NRA?
I grew up
And
in
the
that
answer
used to
is
just be
this.
foggy
We all
and
know,
they're
everyone
sunny
on the
now.
stage knows that our government has been overrun by money and corporate interests.
Come on
And
now.
everyone here has a plan to try and curb those corporate interests. We have to face facts. Money finds a way. Money will find its way back in. So what is the answer? The answer is to wash the money out with people-powered money.
My proposal is that we give every American 100 democracy dollars that you can only give to candidates and causes that you like. This would wash out
Yeah, I would
the
like the money out of politics. Anybody want to take the money out of politics? I would love it. Like, I'm talking about corporate, hidden, the Citizens United money. Let's just face it, it hurts us all. Do I want to build a wall? I think that we can find better solutions, and we need immigration reform. I think it's a waste of money, honestly. I'm just gonna keep it real. We've already had a fence, and we've had a lot of money spent into this.
Students are leaving traditional public schools and going to charter schools. You're the most
Nathan is a hardcore Tulsi fan.
You've said that
You've been
Democrats
saying
want
that
to limit
all
them
this whole time.
jumping into bed with teachers unions and doing kids a disservice. Why isn't taxpayer money better spent on fixing traditional public schools?
The ozone layer, they're saying, is thinner than ever, and the ice caps are melting very, very quickly, too quickly. And even the military is saying that some of their bases are going to be underwater because of the melting ice caps.
The data clearly shows that a
Oh,
good
teachers,
worth
let's
his
talk
or
about
her weight
that.
in gold. We need to lighten up the emphasis on standardized tests, which do not measure anything fundamental about our
Yeah,
character or human
we are a super populated planet, and that's got to have some effects on the planet. You're right. You're 100% right.
Outcomes are determined outside of the school. We're talking about
Sorry.
time spent at home with the
Please
parents,
don't go there.
words read to them
I mean,
when
that's
they're young,
that's you.
stress
That's
levels in the
fine.
house, income, type of neighborhood. We're putting money into schools, and educators know this. We're saying you're 100% responsible for educating our kids, but you can only control 30%. They all know this. The answer is to put money directly into the families and neighborhoods to give our kids a chance to learn and our teachers a chance to teach.
Mayor Buttigieg, 45 seconds to respond.
Education. I want to hear something
Step
about
one
homelessness,
is
though.
appoint a Secretary of Education who actually believes in public education.
Well, I heard that. I'm not a billionaire.
I believe in public education. And in order to strengthen it,
Hey, Freedom,
some things are very
you already know
complex
how
for
Oakland
preparing
is,
for a future
and I'm
where
still not
knowledge
scared.
is at your fingertips, but we got
I'm
to teach
scared of
more
being
to
in a
do
Bay Area. I've
with
lived here
critical
all my
thinking
life.
and social and emotional learning. Some of it is extremely simple. We've just got to pay teachers more.
Keeping it going.
And we've got to lift up the teaching profession. I was thinking of a story from South Bend of friends who
Big
hosted
on the environment,
exchange
too. That's a
students
good
from
point.
Japan. They had a student one year who wanted to be a teacher, and they kept in touch
Insurance
with her when she
companies
went
will
back
make
to Japan
money
into college.
regardless.
She took the exam to try to become a teacher in a society that really regards teachers and compensates teachers well. And she came up just short. So you know what she did? Since she was academically good but couldn't quite make the cut to be a teacher, she had a fallback plan. She became a doctor. That is how seriously some countries treat the teaching profession. If we want to get the results that we expect for our children, we have to support and compensate the teaching profession.
Yeah.
Respect teachers the way we do soldiers and pay them more like the way we do
That's an
doctors.
interesting fact.
Senator Warren, to use Mr. Yang's term, are you just
Antelope. I love antelope, actually. Wyoming's probably really pretty.
I think I'm the only person on this stage who has been a public school teacher.
I could totally see her being a public school teacher. Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
Money for public schools should stay in public schools, not go anywhere else. I've already made my commitment. We will have a Secretary of Education who has been a public school teacher. I think this is ultimately about our values. I have proposed a 2-cent wealth tax on the top 1/10 of 1%
Pretty amazed there's like
in this
still
country.
people in here.
That would give us enough money to start with our babies by providing universal child care
Ben
for
Shapiro,
every
are you
baby
serious?
aged 0 to 5,
Y'all are
universal
funny.
pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in this country.
Thank you,
Raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in this country. Cancel student loan debt for 95% of the folks who've got it.
Yeah, everybody wants to cancel that student debt.
Strengthen our unions. This is how we build an America that reflects our values, not just where the money comes from with the billionaires and corporate executives.
Senator Harris, 45 seconds to respond.
My first grade teacher, Mrs. Frances Wilson, God rest her soul, attended my law school graduation.
Thanks for
I think
coming.
most of us would say that we are
Thanks
not
for
where we
coming.
are without the teachers who believed in us. I have offered in this campaign a proposal to deal with this, which will be the first in the nation federal
we're not.
investment
Obama
in
is
closing
over.
the teacher pay gap, which is $13,500 a year.
I agree that we need
Because
something
right now in our
completely new,
public schools,
I
our
think.
teachers, 94% of them are coming out of their own pocket to help pay for school supplies. And that
Mind
is
you,
wrong.
I didn't agree with
I also
everything
wanna
with
talk
Obama,
about
but
where we
I
are
also
here
don't
at
think that
TSU
everything
and what
was
it
bad.
means in terms of
I just-
HBCUs. I
wish he didn't
have,
bail
as
out
part of my proposal, that
banks,
we will
but
put $2 trillion
I don't think
into
he had the
investing in our
support
HBCUs
of everybody.
for teachers because one, as a proud graduate of a historically black college and university, I will say that it is our HBCUs that disproportionately produce teachers and those who serve in these many professions. But
Thank you,
also,
Senator.
but this is a critical point. If a black child has a black teacher before the end of third grade, they are 13% more likely to go to college. If that child, two black teachers before the end of third grade, they're 32% more likely to go to college. So when we talk about investing in our public education system,
Yeah, that's right,
it is
Nathan.
at the source of
That's what I
so
have brought up,
much.
that
When
these
we fix
corporations
it,
need to pay
that will
taxes.
fix so
It
many
shouldn't be
other
all
things.
on us.
Must
We
invest
pay a
in
lot of
the
taxes.
future of our children. And I strongly believe you can judge a society based on how it treats its children, and we are failing on this issue.
I don't know, Biden.
Guess what?
I don't hear a lot of support for him.
You're guessing. All right, here's the answer. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And yet we have the highest child poverty rate of almost any country on earth. We have teachers in this
Because
country
for some
who
people,
are
it is
leaving
very
education
important because
they can't work 2 or
historically,
3
even
jobs
within their
to
lives,
support
they have been
themselves.
ignored.
Which is why, under my legislation, we will move to see that every teacher in America makes at least $60,000 a year. What we will also do is not only have universal pre-K,
And I wouldn't say it's
we will make
left
public
versus
colleges
right
and
talks about race
universities and
because
HBCUs debt
I have seen a lot of people on the right play victims and use race. Oh my gosh, Antifa attacked me. I'm a black person, I'm gay. I've seen that a lot. So that could be played by anybody. But I think that if people feel like race is an issue, then they have a right to speak about it. And if you're trying to silence it, then it's just going to continue on. So until we talk it out and we find the solutions and we respect each other, it's just going to continue on. Like, it's just a conversation that it's like when you're in a relationship and the person you're with just won't drop something and you're like, why do you keep bringing this up? Well, it's because they feel like it's a problem. And if you don't deal with it, it's just going to keep coming up.
Today for the sins of my own generation, and I'll be damned if I feel responsible to pay for what happened 300 years ago. You said that some 40 years ago.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
That's the last that's the other topic.
Well, they have to deal with look, there is institutional segregation in this country. And from the time I got involved, I started dealing with that. Redlining, banks, making
Not
sure
going to
that we're in a
Vegas,
position where...
betting
Look,
everything
talk
on
about
Trump.
education. I propose that what we take is those very poor schools, the Title I schools, triple the amount of money we spend from 15 to 45 billion a year. Give every single teacher a raise to the equal raise to getting out of the $60,000 level. Number two, make sure that we bring into the help.
I think Trump is a bit of an anarchist little way. I think that's kind of what you're saying. When you destroy certain things, you can rebuild.
1,500 kids in America today. It's crazy. The teachers are, I'm married to a teacher. My deceased wife is a teacher. They have every problem coming to them. We have to make sure that every single child does in fact have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds go to school.
Yeah,
not
I don't
daycare.
think Trump
School.
is.
We bring
I mean, you
social
guys want to
workers
keep
into
betting on
homes
him.
and parents to help
It's
them
not
deal with
2016
how to
anymore.
raise their children. It's not that they don't want to help.
But,
They don't know.
I mean,
quite
he's
what to
got a
do.
lot of people bringing
Play
him
the
down.
radio.
He's going
Make
to
sure
be
the
brought down one day.
television- Make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone. Make sure the kids hear words. A kid coming from a very poor school or a very poor background will hear 4 million words fewer spoken by the time they get there. There's
Thank you,
so
Mr.
much we
President.
know. I'm gonna go like the rest of them do. Twice over.
Oh, Joe.
Just let it go. Just let it go, Joe.
We should be allowing people to come here from Venezuela. I know Maduro. I've confronted Maduro. Number two, you talk about the need to do something in Latin America. I'm the guy that came up with $740 million. To see to it those
That's a
three
good
countries,
thing,
in fact,
right?
change their
I'm
system
kind of like
so
tired of
people
just
don't have
two-party
a chance to leave.
systems. You're
Y'all
right.
acting like we just discovered
Back
this
on
yesterday.
holiday. We need to be going with the Constitution.
Hey, Mark, I was like, okay, let me get my cell phone.
No, Joe is just going off, though. I think Joe has had enough.
That folks have talked about in a neighborhood that was grappling with the legacy of segregation. In fact, in two public school districts that were involved in the 1973 Supreme Court case challenging how Texas financed its schools. And I know that today our schools are segregated because our neighborhoods are segregated. Now, I have an education plan like a lot of folks up
Yeah,
here.
when
that
we're
would pay
segregated,
teachers
we end up
more,
talking a lot
that
about
would
race,
recruit,
don't we?
diverse
Because nobody
ranks
can
of
understand
teachers
each other.
That would invest in our public schools, but I also believe that we have to connect the dots to uplift the quality of life, to invest in housing opportunity, to invest in
Got
job
numbers,
opportunity,
freedom.
to invest-
I can't understand math and gambling. I just don't do it. I don't have good luck. I have good charm. I don't have good luck.
And those things that truly ensure that the entire family can prosper. Those are the types of things that we need to do in addition to lifting up our public schools. You asked a second ago about charter schools. Look, it is a myth that charter schools are better than public schools. They're not.
We need to bring up the public schools. They should be made better. I don't know why we didn't do that in the first place.
Require more transparency and accountability from them than is required right now.
Senator Booker, coming to you now. It was 65 years ago this year that the Supreme Court
Criminal
outlawed
justice
racial
system is
segregation in
terrible.
public schools.
I'm
Yet for
actually
millions of students of color today,
have somebody who
segregation
just got out of
remains a
jail that
reality.
I know very, very
Non-white
well.
districts typically
And I
receive
may actually do a live with him and he'll
less
tell
per
you
student
about
than those in white districts.
his
This
lawsuit
means older
against the
books,
city of San
less
Francisco
access to
County Jail
computers, and often
and how
worse
they
outcomes.
left the
What is your
inmates
plan to
there
address
for
segregation?
about a year and a
I'm not
half
just
with
talking about the
clogged
achievement gap, but I'm
toilets
talking
that they
about
could not use the
opportunity
toilets.
gap in education.
So I'm hearing a lot of conversations
And I
on
think
the
about how
stage
he has to
that-
get out.
and the way we talk
And they
about
used to not
communities of
allow
color.
him to smoke weed, and now it's like,
I
oh, it's
live
okay
in
to
a
smoke
black and
weed.
brown
It's like,
community
wow.
below the poverty line. I've
It's
lived
crazy.
in public housing projects almost for a decade and saw the anguish of parents who are just so deeply frustrated that they don't have a school
Karma
that
may
serves
be
their
in
genius.
question.
I think I'm the only person on this
I
stage,
just
even though I
feel like
had
I have
no
bad
formal
luck.
authority as mayor to run a school system, I stepped up and took responsibility for our schools. And we produced results. A lot of folks here talking about raising teachers' salary. We actually did it in Newark, New Jersey. And we didn't stop there. We closed poor-performing charter schools, but we expanded high-performing charter schools. We were a city that said we need to find local solutions that work for our community. The results speak for themselves. We're now the #1 city in America for BPI
I can't
schools.
show
from high
any
poverty
comments where
to
you
high
guys are
performance.
cussing.
Strategies
Can
like
you be a
investing
little
in our
more
children
creative
work.
if you're
And I'll
going to
tell you
hate
this,
on Democrats?
I am tired of us thinking about these problems isolated, disconnected from other issues. That's why my friend Secretary Castro is 100% right.
I mean, I'd like you
We
guys
are
to be able to
in the
say your
reality we are
comments,
right
but
now
don't
because
cuss so
our
much.
president
Please.
overtly
We're
racist
making-
policies, not 400 years ago, just in my lifetime. That we're redlining communities, disinvesting in communities, and more than just that, my kids are not only struggling with racial segregation in
creative
housing
with your
and the
insults,
challenges of
so YouTube
underfunded
doesn't
schools,
censor you.
but they're also struggling with environmental injustice.
It's okay.
If you talk to someone who's
I mean, I'm
a
fine
parent
with
of
your
a child
opinions.
who's had permanent brain damage because of lead, you'll know this is a
Donald
national
Trump is your
problem
daddy.
because there's over 3,000 jurisdictions in America where children have more than twice the blood lead levels of Flint, Michigan.
Thank you.
And so if I'm president of the United States,
Yeah, it's
it is
changed it a lot.
holistic
All the
solution
rules are
to
changed a
education,
lot.
for raising teacher salary, fully
So I have
funded
to keep it
special
really
education,
clean.
but combating
I let a
the
few
issues of
cuss words
poverty,
slip through here,
combating
but
the issues of racial
if it's just
segregation,
like
combating the
directly
issues of
at
criminal
somebody, I
justice,
can't really
taking
show
parents
it.
away from their kids, and dealing with environmental justice as a major pillar of any climate policy.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I don't see the big problem with cuss words if you're just expressing yourself. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people call a lot of Trump supporters call him daddy. I think it's interesting. It's a call for patriarchy, right?
Everyone We'd like
Oh,
to
did
hear
it
from
end?
David.
That's it?
That's
all, folks?
No, it's not over. It's just a break. It's just
This thing is
the
long.
advertisement came on. I'm
Okay.
giving, you got this, I think, in the last session, but you can, so you don't need to take it again, or you can? Okay. This is the fundamental principles of the Poor People's Campaign.
I think public
And,
school is terrible,
what it has up-
and it
yes,
needs a whole restructuring of how, like,
On the back of it is
like little way of
some dates.
I think that we need
of
to be
things that
teaching
we do around
financial
here. You already got it too.
education, how to do your finances,
The-
credit, you know, like, and
You
also
don't have
just
this.
things that are
You have
relevant
this?
to today.
Okay, I think I might have given it to you in the class.
Mhm.
But this is
You love the
on
patriarchy.
tonight's the debate watch party.
Doesn't
We're
really
having a
work for
teach-in
women
on
too
September
much.
25th.
I
And
mean,
then we have weekly
I wish there
meetings
was like a
on
fair balance
discussions
of
every Tuesday.
matriarchy
You came
and
to that,
patriarchy.
so you might not need this. You don't need it, huh?
I think I'll take it.
I
Okay.
personally
That's
don't
okay.
judge people
But,
based on
SO1
what kind of character they
Well,
are,
there's,
because that
I
can
wanna
be
hear from
very
David about
misleading.
his-
I'll go to the front.
People
Oh, yeah.
can
Yeah.
infiltrate
Oh,
whole
yeah.
entire
And David, I
demographic
met
groups and
David
pretend
in
like
the
they're for
classroom.
them,
We
and
did
then
a
they're actually
presentation
destroy
on
them.
one of the
So why would you
presentations
trust
that
somebody
Alicia
just based
did
on that?
In Miss Chair, was it Dr. Chair's class?
Nay is back
Yeah,
from
and
studying.
he volunteered to take photos of the teach-in,
So you,
actually. I
your
told
public
Michelle
school,
already
but
to
it's
take
funded
photos,
privately,
but
that
we could
has made a
definitely
huge
use another
difference.
photographer
That's
to
interesting.
take our photos, so. And then he came to the last teaching meeting, and here he is now,
Well,
born and
David.
raised in Oakland.
Well, my name's David Godinez, and before I came here, I really wasn't involved into politics at all. I'm gonna be really honest. I wasn't, and I didn't even know any of the, candidates, I guess, for the Democratic
Buffering
Party.
stream is a
But
buffering.
after just coming here, sitting down, and just watching it, I kind of learned a lot.
Right now they said that there's a
learned,
commercial going on.
The position for these candidates, and I learned that Joe Biden may not be the best candidate. So, yeah.
Before, were
You have police officers that just
I was
want to
thinking he was
hand
gonna be pretty
felonies.
good, but then whenever he came up on the topic
So
of
back the blue, do you believe in that? Giving felonies to people that are mentally
kind
ill?
of ducking, or not really answering the
Let's see,
question,
okay.
exactly right, and he was kind of just
Bliss,
waving it
again,
off
I
and
can't
talking
show
about
your
other stuff.
comments.
So that kind of threw me off. I did find two new candidates that I like. Which is his name? Yang.
In some cases,
I'm forgetting the mayor of Texas.
it's a complicated kind of
Beto,
thing.
yes.
I
Yes,
think
really
that
like
women
those two,
need to get into different professions that are higher paying. And also part of that whole discussion involves us having
So one of the
kids
things that's really important
and
about
not being
it's-
able to work
it's
as
not a
much as
problem.
men.
This is where you started. This is electoral politics. So keep in mind, we're in a classroom and part of a community setting. So one of the things that ordinarily you wouldn't have.
Adam.
So we're not coming in with, we're not.
I don't know if I could show your comment either.
We don't have a horse in this race. The horse in
Bliss,
this
I
race
am a witch,
is
but I
fighting
don't
and
like the B
securing
word.
The basic needs of working
I'm
people.
actually, if you
That's
look at
our
how I
horse in this
act,
race. And what
not
we're
really
looking
bitchy.
at, all
Pretty
of us,
chill.
part of the whole reason for the scorecard is to help us get more, do what Emil Carr said, get more informed and discerning, because
I like
you guys
how
have to go
the
for this, and I really,
schools
each of us needs to
going
go
programs
look
to
at their
college
websites. We're just
are really
getting a little
helpful.
snapshot of what they're saying. This doesn't really, because when you're on stage,
I
you're
am
talking
magic,
to
baby.
people, they're talking to donors,
Yeah.
but to really know what they
see this?
propose, that's one part. But ask yourself this question: if anybody on that stage has been in your shoes, anyone in this room's shoes, have
That's
they
a good-
had the challenge?
That's a good
here
stance. Mental
of
health is
trying
very
to
important.
pay for,
And it's
deal with
important
housing insecurity?
within police
Have they had
officers,
the challenge of
military,
being
and
homeless
civilians,
having families
everybody.
strung out and can't get get them to rehab when they need it? Those people on that stage, none of them have the reality that we face. So we got another set of work we have to do. And I call that the real political work, where we the people begin to put our heads together based on what we need, not based on what they're gonna tell us they'll give us. Because they don't say what they're gonna give corporations. They produce for them. So we have to get government accountable to us. And that's the work. That is the work. All of this is about what's the work post 9/25. We post in a few weeks when we get there. So I'm glad if you came to this room not even thinking about any of these jokers, but today, you're thinking, but also you're thinking about the things that Will was saying and maybe someone else is saying, great. And you have to be the change you want to see. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so
David
I'm so
again.
glad you're here.
Okay, all right, David, thank you. If you want to take any food with you.
There's a lot of
We might have overdone the food.
If
Chicken
there's
wings are
anything,
gone. You gonna take them?
Sandwiches.
Chicken wings, bro.
No, oh, the chicken's gone. The chicken you had eaten.
No, there was some chicken wings. I'm trying to go in there. You got crumb crunch. You
Adam.
better go get something.
What Bible verse is that? I am a witch, so I'm a pagan witch. I don't be ruled by men.
I mentioned earlier, I've known what I wanted to be since second grade. I wanted to be a public school teacher.
All right, Nay, thank you for popping in an important time, too.
I did that too.
Okay.
Actually, I made my little future
By the time I graduated,
Freedom. That's an interesting comment there.
much less to send me off to 4
Bliss
years
doesn't
of
want
university.
any of their comments showing because they just keep on calling me name like B words.
And then at 19,
And you know that YouTube is like, no, and I could just hide it. It's like, nope. Boop. Bye. Be more creative. Okay. Adam, I'm not gonna look up something that demeans women. I'm sorry. Just not interested. Women give you life. Don't forget that. We are the creators of
And
life.
back in the day, that meant that the principal said to me, wished me luck and hired someone else for the job.
Yeah, I'm a little tired of the negativity. You're right, little Wayne. I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying to be cool. But you know, there's always trolls that come in here and they try and take over everything. And then they'll say, oh, you're so stupid and boring. And it's like, well, then why are you here?
My first love, which is teaching. But it let me get into fights. It gave me new tools. And the reason I'm standing here today is because I got back up, I fought back, I know what's broken, I want to be in the fight to fix it in America. That's why I'm here.
Senator Sanders.
I don't actually have to do magic potions.
Me means growing up in a rent-controlled
Bliss, it's cool.
apartment in Brooklyn, New York, the son of an immigrant who came to this country.
Hillary
without a
isn't
nickel
coming out
in his
of the
pocket.
woodworks. Don't worry about that. I know that that is your boogie woman.
Running for
A
US
lot of
Senate
people
in
feel
Vermont,
like
getting 1%
Hillary is
of the
not
vote.
coming out. She's not running for president or VP. I don't think she would be VP.
Finally becoming mayor of Burlington, Vermont with 10 vote margin. What resilience means to me is that throughout my political career, I have taken on virtually every
Freedom.
powerful special interest in this country.
Sometimes that's the best way to
Whether
just
it is
deal with
Wall
it.
Street,
I mean, you love your
whether
wife.
it is the
You know, that's why you've been
insurance
married
industry,
for so long.
whether it is the
It works
pharmaceutical industry
sometimes.
whose
I like to be
corruption
listened to.
and greed is
I
killing
like us
people
to understand
today.
each other and
Whether
respect
it
each
is
other.
a military industrial complex or a prison industrial complex. And I feel confident that given a lifelong record of taking on powerful special interests, of standing up for the working families of this country, that I will be able to take on the greed and corruption of the corporate elite and create a government and an economy that work for all of us, not just the 1%.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Senator Harris.
I think some people just need attention.
You know, every office I've run for, whether it be district attorney or attorney general, I was told each time, it can't be done.
Hey, Adam,
They said
are we
nobody
here to
like you
talk
has
about
done it before.
politics or
Nobody is ready for you.
your lack of being able to
When
find
I
women to breed
ran for
with?
DA, I won and became the first black woman elected DA in a state of 40 million people in San Francisco. When I ran for Attorney
I
General
haven't
of
seen that one
California,
actually.
I was
That
elected.
little way.
Because I didn't
I'll probably
listen.
have to check it out because
And
I've
I
seen
was
the Joe Rogan a
only,
few times.
black elected Attorney General in
Yeah,
the
because it's
state,
getting
in
late.
the country.
It's
And
7:35
each time
out here.
people would say, it's not your time, it's not your turn, it's
It's
gonna be
tired.
too
I
difficult,
wish I
they're
could
not
leave right
ready
about
for
now.
you. And I didn't listen, and a part
I've
of
been
it
on
probably
here
comes from the
since
fact that I was raised by a
5:30, 2
mother
hours now.
who said many things that were life lessons for me, including don't you ever let anybody tell you who you are. You tell them who you are. And when I look around the town halls that we do in this race for President of the United States, and I look at the meetings that we do in the community meetings, and I see these little girls and boys, sometimes even brought by their fathers, and they bring them to me, and I talk to them during these events, and they smile,
So my phone
and they're
is
full
starting
of joy,
to
and their fathers
get
tell them,
low battery mode. Liz,
listen
we're
and
not,
let anybody ever tell
we're not
you
here
what
for
you
that.
can or cannot be. You have to believe in
Exactly.
what can be.
Thank you.
unburdened
Thank
by
you,
what
Little
has
Wave.
been.
Senator Harris, thank you very much. Mayor Buttigieg.
We're not here for that. If y'all want some attention so bad.
You know, as a military officer serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and as an elected official in the state of Indiana when Mike Pence was governor, at a certain point,
Really sound like
there came
teenagers.
professional setbacks. I had to wonder whether just acknowledging who I was going to be the ultimate career-ending professional setback. I came back from the deployment and realized that you only get to live one life, and I was not interested
How
in
original.
not knowing what it was like to be in love any
I
longer.
mean, all
So
you're
I just
just
came out.
proving is that
I had no
there's some
idea
people
what
that
kind of
just judge
professional
people
setback
and look
it
down
would
on
be,
people
especially
because of their sex.
inconveniently, it was an election year in my socially conservative community. What happened was that
Yeah, I
when I
did read 'em.
trusted
I met them
voters to
both.
judge me based on the job that I did for them, they decided to
They didn't
trust
really
me
wanna talk to
and
me, though.
reelected me with 80% of the vote.
They
And
kind of
what
looked
I
down on
learned
me
was
like I was
that
a nobody.
trust
It's pretty
can
funny.
be reciprocated, and that part of how you can win and deserve to win is to know
I also
what's
met
worth more to you than that. And I think
Around the
that's what we need
RAM,
in the
Rise
presidency
Above movement,
right
they
now.
called me all kinds of
We have
insults.
to know
I don't care.
what we are
You can
about.
insult me. I don't
And this
care.
election
Like,
is not about any of us up
doesn't
here.
matter.
It is not
I don't
about
take you personally.
this president, even though it's hard to talk of anything else some days. It's about the people who trust us with their lives. A
Hey,
kid
Liz,
wondering if we're
I
actually
already
going to make
casted
their
a
schools
protection
safe,
spell
or they
on this
learned
channel.
active shooter drills before they learn
Whatever
to
you
read.
do
A
bounces
generation
back to
wondering
you.
whether we will actually get the job done on climate change. And if we hold to that, then it doesn't matter what happens to each of us professionally. Together, we will win a better era for our country.
Mayor Buttigieg, thank you. Mr. Young.
I've been
I
threatened
was an
on
unhappy lawyer for
YouTube,
5 whole
on
months, and I left to start a
Twitter,
business. And I'm going to share with you all of the
Facebook.
secrets to entrepreneurship. If you want to start something, tell everyone
Yeah, I've
you
been
know
threatened a
you're
lot.
going to do it. And then you don't have a choice. You put your heart and soul into it, and even though I did that, my company flopped, had its mini rise and maximum fall. Lost investors hundreds of thousands of dollars, still owed $100,000 in school debt. My parents still told people I was a lawyer. It's just a little easier.
There you go,
we're
Beck.
lying on my
That's
phone,
interesting
looking
to
up,
hear.
wondering how did
I
it
like
come
to hear
this.
when locals say
Eventually, I picked myself
something about
back up.
politicians.
I kept
Kamala is
working in
not
small
very
growth
loved out here in
companies for another
Oakland, and
10
she's
years,
from
and eventually
Oakland.
had some success. And after I did have some success, I still remember
I might
how
have
hard
to
it was, how
silence
isolating
Bliss
it
so
was,
that
how it feels like
they're
your
not
friends,
bothering anybody
no
because it's
longer
like
want to spend
they're
time
trying
with
to
you.
take up
And so I
space.
spent 7 years starting and running a nonprofit that helped train young entrepreneurs around the country, including
Bliss
Sean
is
Wynn,
in
who's here in the
third
audience
grade.
tonight,
You
who
shouldn't
left,
be here.
who left his gilded Wall Street job to become a food entrepreneur in San Antonio. Sean, I hope I made the process a little bit easier for you than it was for me. But the goal of my campaign is to make this an economy that allows us to live our human values and aspirations.
There we go.
Thank you.
Hide them from the channel. I can get rid of them.
So my biggest professional setback is
I mean,
is
if you're in
embarrassing,
third
because a lot of
grade,
folks
I don't know
about
what
it.
you're
I,
doing here.
with a bunch
You're
of
just
10 leaders
trolling.
in Newark, New Jersey in
Pay
2002
attention and learn
took on the
something.
political machine, and boy, did they fight back. I had tires on my car
You wanna be a
slashed, my
mod?
campaign offices were broken into, my phones were tapped. It
Because then you're a
became
mod forever.
spectacle, and we lost
That's
that
a lot of
election.
power.
And here's a bit of advice to everybody. If you're going to have a spectacular failure,
I think you're
have
right,
a
Nathan.
documentary team there to
But I
capture it,
kinda
because
let-
it made
I
for
got rid of
an
them already.
Oscar-nominated documentary
I don't want
called
them
Street
disturbing
Fight.
everybody.
But then, unfortunately, another setback, it lost in the Oscars to a movie called March of the Dagnap Penguins, for crying out loud. The people in my community living in the projects told
Adam,
me,
you're
"Don't
gonna
give
be
up on
next.
the people won't give
I don't know
up
what the
on you.
truth was. What was
Create
the
bigger
truth?
and
It was
bolder
an
coalitions,
opinion.
and you're going to win. And you know what? We came back
Let's
4
pay
years later
attention.
and won the largest lopsided victory in our city's history. But more than that, the lesson was there. We didn't give up. We were taking on America's toughest problems, from crime to poverty, and we transformed our city, creating tens of thousands of new jobs.
Exactly.
The biggest economic expansion in our city, as I said before, turned around our school system. There's more work to do, but I haven't given up on the people. I still live in that community. But this is the big lesson. My staff and my friends and my community told me, if you want to go fast, you may have won the mayor's race, but that's not what life is about. There's an old African saying that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. The lesson I learned of resilience is to trust people, because the power of the people is always greater than the people in power. And the test of America right now, it's not a referendum on Donald Trump, it's a referendum on us and who we are and who we're going to be together. We need to use this moment in history to unite in common cause and common purpose, and then there's nothing we can't do together as a nation.
Senator Booker,
Right.
thank you.
Is it really about Trump or any of these candidates, or is it about us?
Everything that I've learned about resilience, I've learned from my hometown of El Paso, Texas. In the face of this act of terror that was directed at our community in large part by the President of the United States, that killed 22 people and injured many more, we were not defeated by that, nor were we defined by that. The very thing that drew that killer to us is the very thing that helps us set the example for the rest of this country. We don't see our differences as disqualifying or dangerous. We see them as foundational to our success, to our strength, and to our security, and to our safety. Yesterday, I was visiting with one of those victims. He's the head coach of the Fusion. This is a girls' soccer team of 10 and 11-year-old girls. His name is Luis. He was shot in the legs multiple times. He was shot in the side multiple times. He's still healing from his wounds in the hospital, but from his hospital bed, he's still trying to coach the Fusion girls soccer team. Memo, his co-coach, is still fighting for his life right now at Del Sol Hospital. Those two men, Jessica and Marcella, their wives, they exemplify resilience to me. And
So
when
far,
we
we kinda
end
got
this
rid of most of
scourge
the trolls.
of gun violence in this country, when we finally confront the racism that exists in America, when we're defined not by our fears, but instead by our aspirations and our ambitions, it will be in large part, I think, thanks to the example that El Paso has set.
Right, Robert.
Thank you. Senator Klobuchar.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen you before.
My challenges and resilience have brought me up here. I grew up with a dad who struggled with alcoholism his whole life, and after his third DWI, he had a choice between jail and treatment. He
doing good
chose
for me.
treatment with
I
his
had to pay more
faith, with his friends, with our family, and in his words, he was pursued by grace. And that made me interested in public service because I feel like everyone should have that same right to be pursued by grace. I then got married. My husband's out there somewhere, hopefully smiling, and our daughter. And our daughter was born. I had this expectation we were going to have this perfect birth, and she was really sick. And she couldn't swallow, and she was in and out of hospitals for a year and a half. But when she was born, they had a rule in place that you got kicked out of the hospital in 24 hours. She was in intensive care, and I was kicked out. And I thought, this could never happen to any other mom again. So I went to the legislature, our state legislator, not an elected official.
Yes, please, Freedom, go ahead.
And I advocated for one of the first laws in the country guaranteeing new moms and their babies a 48-hour hospital stay. And when they tried to delay the implementation of that law, I brought 6 pregnant friends to the conference committee, so they outnumbered the lobbyists 2 to 1. And when they said, when should it take place, they all raised their hand and said, now. That is what motivated me to go into public service. And when I got to that gridlock of Washington, D.C., I got to work and pass over 100 bills. And I know a lot of my friends here from the left, but remember, I am from the middle of the country. And I believe if we're going to get things done, that we have to have someone leading the ticket with grit. Someone's going to not just change the policies, but change the tone in the country. And someone who believes in America and believes it from their heart because of where they came from. That everyone should have that same opportunity.
Senator, thank you.
Well, Freedom,
Secretary Castro.
you make twice as much as I can
Thank
ever
you,
make.
George, to Jorge, to Lindsay, and to David,
So,
and to all
that's
of you all
probably why
for
you got
tuning
a
in
tax
tonight.
refund, because the people
In many
with
ways,
more
I shouldn't be
money
here on
got
this
tax
stage.
refunds.
Castro is
And
my
those of
mother's
us who
name,
are hurting
and was my grandmother's
we're
name
actually
before
paying
her.
more.
I grew up
We're
in a
struggling.
single-parent household on the west side of San
That's kind
Antonio,
of the issue.
going to the public schools.
We all should be better.
Eventually,
I'm
my
not
brother
against
Joaquin
rich
and I
people either,
became
or
the first in
people
our
that are middle
family
class, or
to
people
become
that make good
professionals.
money, or people that work
And
hard.
when I got home, I took a job at the biggest law firm in town. I was making $100,000 a year in the year 2000. A few months later, I got elected to the San Antonio City Council, and the City Council at the time was only paying $1,040 a year. So
But if
everybody
we
had
make
another
good
job,
money,
and my
shouldn't
job
we
was at the
pay
law firm.
taxes to take
Well,
care
a few months
of our
after I got
roads
elected,
and our police officers
the
and
law firm got a
our
client.
veterans and all
And
that
the
stuff?
client wanted those of us on the
The
city
people,
council to
the
vote for a
community.
land deal. The land deal was that they wanted to build a golf course over our water supply because we relied on an underground aquifer. I didn't think the environmental protection plan was
So,
strong enough,
Robert,
so I
you don't
wanted to
have
vote
to
against
argue
it,
about
and my
anything,
constituents
because
wanted
it's
me to
just
vote against it. But under the
a
ethics
different
rules
point
for
of view.
lawyers in
One
Texas,
person has a
because
point of
believe it or
view,
not,
another person
lawyers
has a
have
point of
ethics
view.
rules.
It's not anything you need to argue about.
So I
You
was
don't even
stuck.
need to do it.
On the one hand, I wanted to do the right thing. On the other hand, my livelihood, my student loans, my new house payment, my car payment
Who's spoken
depended on me
in
shutting
Spanish
up,
today?
being conflicted out. So one day I walked into my law
Beto.
firm and I quit my job. And then I went and I voted against that land deal on the city council. And, you know, that was the first test that I had. And I think back to that because oftentimes we think of politics and you think of politics as dirty or corrupting. I wondered before I went in it whether it would change who I was. And I was proud that when that first test came, that I stood up for the people that I was there to represent and not for big special interests. There's nobody that gets tested more in a position of public trust than the President of the United States. This president has failed that test.
That
But I
is
want you to know
interesting.
that if
That
you
is an
elect me
interesting
president,
point about
I
Adam.
won't.
Thank you, little
I
Ray.
won't serve anybody except you
Freedom,
and your
I think that
family.
that's a
And together, we can
great
create an America that's better than ever.
short view.
Thank you very much.
And so thank you to all of our candidates.
If your
It was a
taxes
great
aren't
debate. I
going
think we learned a lot tonight.
to
Thanks
benefit
you.
the public, then
Thanks
why
to
would you want to
Texas
pay for
Southern
the
University
taxes?
for hosting us tonight. It was a great crowd
But
as well.
you deciding where your money goes to means that it's never going to go where it actually needs to go, like making sure that our cities have clean water, making sure our streets and our infrastructure is paid for. Who's going to pay for that if we never paid for taxes? Nobody. Nobody would want to do it.
What do you guys think? Think now.
Definitely worth the ride.
It was. Did you? I feel like Bernie Sanders doesn't represent himself well enough in these. Like if his policies, like when I go to his website,
I didn't get defensive about women. I told you my own viewpoints. Have I gotten
As far
upset?
as for education, for
No.
for, I think he even has something about homelessness, for so many things. But he just, some of the other people are more
Alright, we're gonna get some
charismatic
more.
and younger. But you can't just go by the debate, I guess, is part of what I'm saying. But it was very exciting to hear. And also, I think his policies have had a big influence on the other Democrats.
Mhm.
Because they weren't talking about Medicare for all. That's
No.
straight out of Bernie's campaign. And now they're really talking about providing health care for everybody in different ways. But what do other people think?
I'm disappointed that we didn't really hear about housing.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a countrywide problem for a lot of cities. It's not just here.
Yes.
And I'm amazed how they don't. But he was specific to veterans, and that's
Right.
something that a lot of people have always talked about when they talk about homeless. They're like, "What about the veterans?" They are disproportionately, homeless, and they, But I think we have to talk about the bigger issue that there is not affordable housing is becoming less and less all over the place.
Yes.
And it's
Right.
it's at a peak point. And then also I wonder about how we talk about not just healthcare but mental health included into it. You know, that's a topic that nobody's really talking about.
All they talk about was money.
Yeah, that's what politics is all come down to, and I think that's why I get. So after a while, I get kind of tuned out off this because I'm like, oh, all anybody cares about is how you're going to pay for everything.
Yes.
And,
Where the money's
and they
gonna
still
come
don't
from.
really say exactly how they're going to implement the policies either, because there's so many people there, and how are they actually going to sit there and talk about complicated policy?
Yeah.
And how they're actually going to implement it. Nobody has said exactly how they're going to do this.
Well, another thing that I noticed is that you're in here
Mhm.
trying to discuss, see who's gonna be the next president.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we're still talking about the current president.
Yeah.
And he was all up in there. They should have brought a podium for him. You know, he was there all day. So, I mean, I don't know.
And they're still talking about him here in my chat right now.
Trump, you mean?
Well, and there's Trump supporters that are trying to take over the chat.
Right.
So, of course.
Of course.
What are they saying?
Some of them are trolling, and I'm having to get rid of them. Because they don't, and then they say you don't like facts. I'm like, all you're doing is your opinions and name calling. Like that's not facts. And not all of them are doing that. I'm just saying that there's some that are coming in here and they're doing a bit.
Andrea, nice. You can keep coming and
I will. Even if I don't understand information, even if I have to take my classes like 2-3 times, I'm willing to.
All right, everybody. I thank you for joining our debate night. I think this worked really well, and I think we'll have to do it again. And Freedom, you had a link to other debates, so if there are other debates with independents, Republicans, different politicians, I don't really care about party as much as I care about policy and what, and honesty. You know, let's try and do more discussions on this, right? Thank you, Little Wave. I'm glad that you were all here. I know, you know, whoever you voted for in the past, whatever your beliefs, I think that we all have valid viewpoints because we're all coming from different things. This is what I'm learning. Like we had Wyoming in here, we had Denver, Colorado, we had Illinois, we had people that, you know, support police officers, we have conservatives, we have people that are more left-wing progressives. If we can all come together, you know, and kind of figure out where we're all coming from and why certain things don't work for us and why certain things do, at least we have an understanding of where we're coming from. So I appreciate you all coming in. No matter, in Louisiana, hey, what's up, Rylan? Louisiana.
That's great and all, but
Little Wave, you can't vote yet because you said you were 16, right? But I kind of feel like maybe 16 is a good, you should be voting for. Maybe, I don't know. I wanted to vote when I was 16. I was so happy when I could vote when I was 18.
That's something that you can also use to maybe add to your grandma's wisdom. It's also
I can't go without doing a cartwheel. To be honest with you, I can do a high kick. I can't do a cartwheel, and I think everybody's gonna look at me crazy if I do a high kick or a cartwheel in here. But otherwise, why not? If I was like, when I was younger, I could do a cartwheel. Okay, what's up? No to 16. You think 16 is too early for voting? Okay. What's up, Rylan? Go ahead and ask me a question before I go.
She's a part-time faculty talking about her experiences. This was by Michelle about gun violence.
And you all want to, would you all want me to do another live chat? I could talk about this article I did about the background of white nationalism and white supremacy in the country and where it came from. I will try and stay in contact with you, Rylan. There's a lot of people that try and message me on Facebook and Instagram, and I don't even go on there that much. Like I post stuff, but I am super busy, so it's really hard to do private messaging with everybody who wants to do private messaging. But I don't like people that just ignore other people, so I'll try and conversate with you. No, I am straight. Not that I don't mind you asking. You know, I have a lot of friends that are of all different. What do you call it?
It does, right? But it's not. It's not. They're trying to actually turn it into a charter school.
Yeah,
but
sounded like it.
They're aggressive.
All right, Robert.
Fighting it.
9/11 was a really hard day. Your Facebook got deleted. I don't know how you get your Facebook deleted. I hear a lot of people get banned and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't have that problem. But I also, I'm really good at keeping things clean. Maybe because I'm a mom.
Yeah, the school's on Sunnyside.
Sunnyside.
In 9 something? Yeah.
Beck on Hollow doesn't believe in white supremacy, I guess.
It's still bad. All
But
the students
If you just don't want to hear what I got to say, that's fine.
Running, not a drive-by,
I mean, I
a
actually
running
used
issue.
real history.
Two men were
Have you
running
ever heard of the Bacon Rebellion? Did you know?
This is like 2 months ago.
Did you know about the Bacon Rebellion? You guys should look that up.
So that's.
You'll hear a
that
lot
is-
of
it did
history
mention
if you
gun
actually look that up.
violence in the documentary, I mean, in the debate. Andrea wanted to say.
Sure, I can ask.
Your reaction.
Actually, I wanted to say thank you to everybody who came and who set this up in the first place. This was wonderful and very eye-opening.
Oh, Adam, I can't. I can't right now.
First, I was very disappointed in Biden when he was asked.
But I
about
will.
his
I'll
comment
let
from
him able to be on the channel later.
1975 about
Okay. I'll let Bliss be back. I'll give him a
racism,
a second
slavery,
chance.
And he just completely skated past it, didn't even address it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the biggest issue that needs to be addressed is that, you know, African Americans in this country are here because of slavery.
I haven't figured out what the next
Generational
one will
trauma,
be.
Including generational poverty and generational diseases and so
I
many
think
things
we can
because
do
of
this with
that.
all
And
races.
there's such a
Beck,
huge
I
gap.
agree with that.
I'm also disappointed that not one person
Hold on,
the
I'm gonna
stage
ask the question about
truly
16.
addressed that other than Beto and
Any
addressed
other
it as
questions
one
that
of the
anybody wants to ask?
major issues,
That's
because
exactly right.
Yeah,
to
Jon
me,
Stewart,
that-
he
that's
did
what I
fight
was
for the
looking for. That should
9/11
be number one on the list,
responders.
including on that
He
paper you
rocks.
passed out. Did they address like
Women's
racial
supremacy. How do we have
injustice?
women's supremacy?
How
I
are we
told you
going
I'm
to,
fine with women
that should
and
be
men
number
working
one.
together.
So it was disappointing that
I can
even though Beto
you want me to
mentioned
cosplay for my
that
next
was
stream? I can do
That
that.
should have been one of the topics, a question that was asked to everyone.
Paranoia ghost stories. That sounds good. I'll have to look into that because I don't know a lot of ghost stories, but I could tell you my own ghost stories.
Immigration is important, but it affects a certain population. You know, what about the other population whose its descendants, like, or its ancestors created everything that we have today? So I feel like that should be talked about a lot more.
Sounds like you're gonna be involved in this campaign, cause you got some passion on these issues, and that need to be elevated and percolated up as well.
I'm very much involved in the community now.
You're in Oakland?
It's Oakland and other places.
Great.
Okay, I'll cosplay for the next stream. I have a perfect one. I look real cute.
But just, I feel like we need at least one more candidate.
Yeah, I could read
who is
something.
also
I
focused
have,
on
you
that
know where I
part of the
write.
issue,
I could
but
write.
that's not
I could read all different kinds of writing too. It doesn't have to be all political. Cosplay and ghost stories, just in time for almost October. Sounds good.
Never seems to be enough.
No.
I'm just waiting for people to finish
I feel like
talking.
we've never had a candidate that has expressed those issues, or we've never had a candidate in the two main parties that have expressed those issues.
I feel like we haven't had one that's really expressed it in the magnitude that it needs to be expressed. A lot of them, I'll just be honest, they save for the core points to get the black
Ooh,
vote.
October
But who has
30th is a
actually
good
made
birthday.
moves and
I
set
love
forth
Halloween, by the way.
bills or policies to actually change that gap or even talked about reparations. And that's why Bernie will never get
Talking
my
about
vote, because when he
reparations right now.
was asked about it.
Oh, thank
He
you.
said that he doesn't think that's possible. If you don't even believe reparations are possible, you know, I don't understand how you can think that when so many groups in America get money for certain things, so why shouldn't we? You know, that you have to believe it's possible in order to even want to take a step in that direction. So some of them have mentioned it, but they're not doing it.
So that's it. What's your name, ma'am?
Jasmine.
Jasmine?
Well, I go by Jasmine, but yeah.
So this question that she raised as a big piece in my mind
They may
to
take a
say,
while.
okay, we've got our set of demands. Are we feeling that they're
Yeah, I'm glad I
being
did too,
addressed
Robert.
by either of the two major parties?
Thank you, Beck.
Because
You're
if
cool
they're
too.
not,
You come in
and I think
anytime.
the
We don't
question
have to
is, what's
agree
in
on
the
everything. It's
relationship
okay.
Of reparations and racial injustice to those things on that list, because the reason we decided to detail out those things is that sometimes people will say all the good things, they'll get the touchstones, but they don't really mean for everybody. They don't mean for poor people. They don't mean for poor Black, poor Latino, poor whatever group. And that's one of the reasons that Trump got in office. So it seems to me a part of what you're raising, if you keep doing your scorecard and the
But they're
things
talking
that you are
about
concerned about are
evening
not
and
showing up for
balancing
any of these
things out.
candidates. Participate in that campaign, but build to what we still need as a broader community. Don't see it as that's the end game. That's a beginning game to try to link. I didn't know any of you ladies and young men before I came to this convening, and the people that Michelle have us linked into. The point is, our conversation has to happen, but also our demands, not the other way around. In America, it's so twisted. They have us believe that elections is showing up, pulling the lever for this or that joker. But you are talking about something different. Who's got the plan to get our people up off the street into housing tomorrow? This is the richest nation on the planet. No one should have to be outdoors. So if we want those things to be a priority, we got to come together and put that,
pretty chill,
those things as the top part. Not let them say they'll get to it. Jump in.
So we have a question. There's a 16-year-old here who says that they can't vote, and they want to know if they think that 16-year-olds should be able to vote.
I do, yeah. I think 16-year-olds should be able to vote because
Some people
they
have
can
that.
drive. Can they drive?
Yeah.
If they can drive, they should be able to vote.
I feel like I'm the youngest person in this room.
Okay.
And I'm saying no. Because I actually remember what it used to be like to be 16.
Right.
Why? Because there's no
Do you hear her?
forcing you to take any kind of like political science class. You take government, but it's high school government and it's elementary. It's like so underwhelming. They don't teach you anything.
What
And
if
so,
it-
like,
what if
people
we-
often go
What do you
world.
know by the time you're 21 if you don't go to college? What
Yeah.
do you know?
I'm wondering, what if we actually improved our public education
Yes.
with civics and
But
and
in
also
real- that
economics and
happens.
all those things?
16-year-olds who are trying to figure out their hormones, their boyfriend problems,
Yeah.
if they're going to college, should not have to vote. And
So
it's,
today-
it's like a responsibility, and if you don't know what you're doing, it's a dangerous thing.
So
And
check
there's-
this out. I think that thinking about voting and civic involvement are two different things. Today I just saw the young lady from Greta Thunberg who helped to launch these young people from all over the world in a climate, in terms of advancing climate control. And she started that at 14. She's 16 now. She talks like a 40-year-old. I just want to say to the 16-year-old.
Not all 14-year-olds are.
Right, so I'm gonna finish my point, I'm gonna finish my point though. So I think that, look, right now, I agree with both sides of it. I don't want that 16-year-old to hear that as, I don't have a way to provide leadership. Yes,
That's
we
not
need your leadership. Yes, you do.
Little Wave?
And if
Oh,
we
wait.
can do these other pieces.
Come on,
it
everybody,
can
get
also be a
along,
way to bring in-
please.
so I want you guys
Like I
to follow
said, you
that
can't-
leadership with that youngster at 14.
We gotta keep it
who
chill.
now is like a world
We gotta
leader.
respect each other in here. I don't know
Very
if what
informed,
happened.
and
What
she's
happened?
jacking up old people like me
What happened
all
on here?
over the world. That's a wonderful example. That's a social revolution process. We need more of that, and the youngsters are leading that. So
Those kids that.
Yeah, I don't know
and
what's
the
going on.
freshmen,
Let's not.
after
I
the
just
shooting
asked the
in-
question. They're talking about
what was that,
16-year-olds
Florida?
voting.
Those
We
kids-
gotta stay
We have
focused.
marches that are leading it to be discussed, to gun control being
Right.
discussed right now.
Yep.
And it was their
I'm sorry
leadership and
if
them
anybody
saying,
feels
you
like
know,
they were attacked on
as
here.
soon as we can vote, we are gonna vote.
It really
yes,
doesn't
yes,
matter.
They were
Yeah.
We should not
17,
be
almost 18,
insulting each
yes.
other.
But they really made a difference. They made a difference on grown-ups.
So both things are there.
Okay.
Go out there, do that. You spread your word.
Little Wave, please. I know that you're one of the younger ones in here, but we gotta be cool, okay? Nobody here is 5. I'm pretty sure there's not a 5-year-old on here.
Because
I probably do.
smaller
You're
people,
right.
it should be
My
redone.
friend
Like,
was
the way
trying to
that
do that.
voting happens and the way the point system goes, and it's not really 100% fair. So it shouldn't be changed anyway.
You mean the electoral
But
college?
if you were to if you were to change
Anyways.
Voting age down to 60, you would have to change a lot of things. I think like if you're allowed to
The thing about
vote at
moderators
16,
is I really
you
want
should be
people to
allowed
be
vote
able
more,
to
because that
have
is
as much
just
freedom to
scary.
talk
They'll
as
have
possible.
life
But when
experience,
we,
fear
you know,
of the possibility that they could go to war, they could be a part of the army, they have to pay bills.
Little Wave. Come on. You know a lot of people hit on me. You know that. I can't do anything about that. And it's okay, all right?
Then you don't even know about paying health insurance. I'm under the age of 26. I'm dreading
It's cool. It's cool. Remember, Little Wave is like,
But you still have to follow the laws.
is nowhere near that.
You
They
still
don't
have
pay
to
their
follow
phone
the
bill,
laws
their
that
house
the
bill,
government
they don't do
makes.
taxes.
They don't know enough.
A lot of
They don't know.
yeah, I feel you, Riley. I feel you.
We have people that
don't know.
We got old people that don't. You're talking about
Listen, I thought I knew
voters.
everything at 16. I didn't
Yeah.
pay rent. I
Let's
like
change the
that.
subject. Anyways, I'm actually gonna go. I gotta go home. It's like 8:05. It's been a long day. I hope nobody, I really don't mean anybody, any kind of disrespect on here.
Educate their parents. Be like, let's have a conversation about
Biden is not leading this group here. They're not with Biden. I'll tell you that right now.
Let's have the broad,
But
let's keep having the
if you
discussion
mean
where the
leading the
16-year-olds
polls, I think he's actually
are
going down.
saying, how do I have more agency? How do I have more impact? And I think the kind of qualifying things that you
And they actually were
folks are putting
answering
forward,
Little
that's
Wave's
great,
question
but
about
we have so
16-year-olds.
many
They're
things
debating
that
about
right
it
now are
still.
excluding any number of us on all kinds of ways. How do we bring it together and re-envision a different society? I think that's, so if we got
All right,
somebody
Freedom, I
young
gave you a
16
moderator
who's
for a
asking
minute
the
here. Go ahead and post the link.
Let's not let it limit to just voting.
Thank you,
And
Robert.
we know all the things
Thank
like
you all for
said
coming. I'm
are
about to
very,
put
very
it down. I'm
true.
going to give Freedom a chance to
That
post
me
this.
is, we're having two
They're still talking
conversations.
about
One is a
16-year-olds being able
conversation where
to
we've been given the
vote
rules about who can vote
and learning
who
civil
can't. And all
civics.
kind of people's effort in this country, all kind of
And
workers
much
are
love to you all.
suppressed from voting. And then at the same time, it becomes a way to divide us. So how do we take that weapon away? And I think if we
I
can
see
have
you
that
blue
bigger
now.
conversation
You're in there.
and address the
But I really
problems that
want
we're
everybody to be
talking
able to
about.
talk.
But that's talking about community in a
I
very
don't want to
different way.
like silence
And I think
people
that's
if
a
I can
good
help it.
thing. We hope that you guys will replicate doing these
Thank
kind of
you.
watch
Business
parties
Insider
in
is a good
whatever
source too.
networks you're
That's a
in.
good source.
That tool that we have, there's a really old guy called Abbie Hoffman. He had a saying from the 60s, steal this book, and we want to, a white guy, and we want to say that same thing, steal these tools. Steal the tools of knowledge and pass them on. Because the point is, we want different value system informing what
Okay.
we're doing.
I'll give you a
And
minute.
that's what you're talking about. So let's separate them out, right? The
Freedom's
difference
got
between
a link
what
for a
the law
debate,
says
not,
is your
I
right
guess
to
Business
vote
Insider is something
versus
else.
where you actually have agency, and what that requires, what's the responsibilities of that. So anyway, you guys are great. I hope
And I
that
thank
you'll
you all for
come to the
coming in
meetings
too. Like
on
we all had a
Tuesdays
really
from 4 to
good
6.
chat here.
And
I know that there was some disruptiveness, but I appreciate you all coming in here and voicing what was important to you, because I think that that's important for us all to do, and I want to keep doing it. But it sounds like my next chat needs to be in cosplay with some ghost stories.
If anyone wants to take any cookies with them or other items.
That's like a huge pile of cookies over there.
I mean, some of them at Mojo and other.
Nice meeting you, by the way. Good thinking. I'm sure. And you have the people's survey, right? Good. So you know right there too, right? Yeah, you can. I'm telling you.
I have to deal with people being argumentative so much that I, especially with me having twins, oh my gosh, I've learned to like, oh, look, they got the GOP presidential primary debates on September 24th. I gotta do that. Okay, let's do that. Let's do a live chat for that.
It's true.
Nathan. Sometimes I have kind of thought about that. My grandfather had dementia, and I don't think he could even vote at that point. Yeah, it does affect the younger population. I feel like we need to engage people in civic democracy and get them understanding it as much as possible and understanding the importance of it from a young age. That's why I'm kind of like, if a 16-year-old wanted to vote, I think that they,